you sent pulled up and ready to go as well. So as soon as we're ready for that, we'll bring them on up.
Great.
But we're here. It's Monday. Oh, look. 4 minutes late. Jenkins is already talking smack. Keller's already talking smack. Keller said, yeah, let's go watch another podcast.
Nice.
Now they're posting every emoji in the book. It must just be the two of them. There's a bromance going on in the chat there.
Always a bromance. Always.
Yeah. What is going on? It's Monday. We're back. It's episode 204 of Snakes and Stogies, brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. You buy yourself something nice. Use the code THN at checkout. Save 10% off your order. There's a pickup option. Save yourself on shipping. If you're in the Southeast, just drive on up to BlackBox in North Georgia and pick it up. And then you get to take it home and set it up right away and get everything together and enjoy it for a lifetime.
Yes.
Do you know when your stuff's coming?
No, I don't. I never tell them like I need it now. Like this is all my BlackBox stuff is for future grow out and future endeavors. And I really want to like I mean, dude, it took me almost a year to do that Gila thing just because I wanted to get it right, you know?
Yeah.
But I did go on to Pet Backdrops and order 4 backdrops, one for Anna Maria's King Snake, and then 3 for myself which is going to be these 3 BlackBox that are coming. So I still haven't quite, I know I've got, one of them is going to be my adult female anery subok, and then one's going to be a fairly adult cottonmouth. And then the other one is going to be a pair of dusky pygmies. So we'll get that all set up and going.
What's the cottonmouth one going to be? Like the back of a Walmart in the retention pond?
Yeah, it's actually the Home Depot Garden Center is what it's going to be.
Nice.
Yeah. No, actually that one I have a really cool picture I took in Big Cypress of like a cypress head, but inside the cypress head with like, you know, that's 6 inches of water and the cypress knees coming through and a bunch of air ferns. And actually it's a cell phone picture from like, I don't know, man, almost 10 years ago. And it's kind of grainy, but I like it because it's kind of grainy. It kind of gives that foggy feel to it. So we'll see how it translates onto the adhesive background, but I'm excited. I'll definitely be posting pictures and video and everything.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah. BlackBox, baby.
Still have to order in. I'm not rolling with anything too crazy. I think I'm just going to get one of the D70 racks again.
Cool.
Just to replace sort of the homemade one that I have now that I've been itching to ditch for a BlackBox rack for a minute. So finally get around to doing that. I also contemplated getting another one of the, I think it's the XA3. It's the 2 BioGs basically put together. Getting one of those for either another pair of rhinos or the pair that's already in the cube, upgrading them to that.
Cool.
But I haven't decided yet. I don't know. I really need to get more adult rack space together. That's kind of the most pressing thing at the moment. So
yeah,
that's what we'll probably end up doing. But yes, check them out. Use the code THN at checkout. Also use the code THN at checkout at fulviusapparel.com. Get yourself a hat. Get yourself a shirt. We just finished the buy one, get one half off sale, and it went really well. I appreciate everyone that placed an order. Got some more stuff going up to Twin Cities Reptiles here soon. Yeah, it's been good. Work's been busy. Still managing to get some orders out the door. So having to get them done in between some other stuff here and there and getting there early and all that. So new stuff to add too here soon. I got some other things I've been working on, just slowly getting around to getting them all included. So
excellent.
Taking time. Cold-blooded caffeine. Check them out as well. Snakes and Stogies blend. If you go to coldbloodedcaffeine.com, you can find this here Snakes and Stogies blend.
The one and only.
The one and only. We need to get Trey on for an update here soon.
We do.
It's been a minute.
How's their podcast going? I keep missing it.
I mean, they're cranking it out regularly. So
yeah. It's good stuff.
As far as I know, it's going good. So there's a link down below. Get that Snakes and Stogies blend. Get any of the other blends. Get any of the other pour overs or anything else you might need for coffee. And some of the proceeds from that go to preserving rainforest. So hop on over. Get caffeinated. It's good stuff. You won't be disappointed. It's all good. Whether it's our blend or any of the other ones, they're all solid.
Absolutely.
What's new down there?
Nothing really, man. Same old status quo, trying to get some enclosures together and do some spring cleaning. And I'm probably gonna, I didn't get a lot done this weekend because of Mother's Day and all that goodness, but I'm probably gonna start tearing that rack system apart, like I said, so I can start the toad project, if you will. And it's been a while since I had inverts. And I'm a big scorpion guy. You're a big scorpion guy, and we've both had our fair share of tarantula and so on and so forth. But I was like, man, I really want to get something. And Underground just got a shipment in from Egypt, and they had a bunch of different species of scorpion. I said, you know what? Let me get a death stalker just to have one, just to
scratch that itch,
not physically. So I did, and I grabbed it, and I actually. Yeah, no, right. And I wanted to get one that was more colorful than normal. There's some of the localities have like that pink and orange in the legs and more jet black on that last segment of the tail, and a real bright yellow Telson. And while I was there, my boy Ish, he does most of the bugs there. He's got some crazy macro photography, and he has all the scientific papers of the different, I don't want to say scalation, for lack of a better word, scalation of the tail and the undersides with all the identifying marks that have the different species. Because I think they split Liaris into I don't even know, 6 or 7
I know there's
species now.
Subspecies and stuff. Because I had, I think it was Habrius.
Okay.
Which was a subspecies at the time. I don't know if it still is or not. We'll get into that a little bit, because if you thought taxonomy was very fluid in herps, it's a raging
straight up
waterfall
liquid.
Herps.
It's so I got that one, and it may very well be that Sinai species, which I'm kind of hoping it is, because they grow up to be real cool. If I can get a molt or two out of this one, it's fairly medium size, so hopefully it still has a couple molts left in it, and I can kind of make it stay clean, so to speak. But then when Justin told me about our guest this week, I was like, what a coincidence. Now we gotta talk inverts, gotta talk bugs. So, but that's all that's fresh on my agenda. What about yourself, sir?
So I thought that I'm a real idiot for this one. Thought that pie blood red female was in her pre-lay shed, and she's been cruising. She's been in and out of the lay box, and I'm like, awesome, she's gonna lay soon. She still hasn't laid, and so I'm like, what the hell's going on? I check on her yesterday, and she's going into another shed cycle. So I'm like, okay. That wasn't her pre-lay. This is her pre-lay.
I thought you were gonna say it's a boy.
No, it's definitely a girl. I just assumed that was her pre-lay. I thought it was, so.
All right.
Those eggs will be coming soon, hopefully. That's what the plan is.
Cool.
Female rhino has been in a shed cycle for what feels like about 2 weeks now, because I haven't seen her in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Pulled her out over the weekend to see if there was any egg action, and I believe she is also gravid. And I think this is going to be her pre-lay shed, because she looked pretty thick. So
excellent.
And if I recall last year, the pre-lay shed felt like it took an eternity compared to a regular shed. Like, not just my imagination playing with me because I'm excited about eggs, but like legitimately, it seems like it took way longer than
more
a normal
than 2
shed.
weeks.
And rhinos already take what feels like a longer time to go through a shed cycle anyways. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, the lay box pretty much stays in there year round as well as like a humid hide. She's clearly been spending time in it at some point, because it's all compressed and there's like a little stalactite thing in the middle where she's just been circling.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think she's sort of on the other end of that to be shedding here within the next, I would think, couple days, maybe to a week. We'll see. But
All right.
I'll be happy if I get another clutch from her. And that's pretty much it.
All right. What are you smoking tonight?
Mike Rita, Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. It's like the 7x64 or something. It's a big one, but
all right.
Tricky Traca. I'd make Mike Rita Tricky Traca is what that one is. The red label.
Nice.
What about you?
I'm switching gears hardcore. I went to a different shop to kind of see what's out there because I haven't been really cigar shopping too much because I try to keep a good stash on hand, but I hadn't had a Perdomo in forever. And the guy was like, hey man, only, I don't know if it was 20 dealers or something. Somebody Google it and correct me, but only so many dealers, which happened to all be in the Southeast US, got a 30th anniversary Perdomo. So, and I guess they did a Maduro, a Connecticut, and something else.
They usually do that, a Connecticut and a Sungrown.
Yeah, that's what it was, Sungrown.
Yeah.
And so this is the Maduro and the Toro. And I was like, why not, man? Great brand. Smells fantastic. So let's see how we roll.
Not a fan of the Sungrowns and the anniversary stuff they do for some reason. The Maduros and the Connecticut's are phenomenal. But the Sungrowns, I don't know what it is, just doesn't.
And honestly,
it's not historically done much for me.
Maybe it's me, but I really don't like Sungrown unless it's either AJ Hernandez stuff or just Drew Estate. I feel like
it's tough.
There's,
for me, my father does the best Sungrown stuff in terms of like that sort of middle of the road strength. But there's also like the ESGs and VSGs that Ashton puts out that are also good. But in terms of like a daily smoke kind of deal, that La Flor de las Antillas from my father is kind of the go-to for me for sun-grown stuff. So,
all right.
But I mean, it's kind of ironic because it's all sun-grown to a degree. But the term sun-grown, when you see that, is plants that are grown in like open fields, full sun. No cheesecloth, no shade cover. They're not aged like Maduros are, so they're not as dark. But essentially, like all your tobacco and stuff that isn't a Connecticut is going to be technically sun-grown. But yeah, Connecticut's are growing under the cloth and stuff and under cover, so the plants are smaller. It's a much lighter leaf because they're naturally thinner and littler. And then your sun-grown is the stuff that just, again, gets full sun constantly. Big plants, big leaves, thick leaves, depending on the part of the plant. And it's typically going to be stronger. It's typically going to be maybe a little spicier, just a little more on the aggressive side, I guess, is the way to put it. But
yeah. Well, first impressions of this is way more spicy than I imagined. I mean, it's damn near T52 spicy, and the draw is perfect. So I just I cut it, and we're in business, man.
They've grown on me a lot, especially those 20th anniversaries over the last year or so. I've really been smoking those a lot more than I did traditionally. And my dad's a hardcore Perdomo guy. He's a lot 23 dude through and through.
Yeah.
So their stuff is good. It's the price point's good. It's all solid. So
yeah.
I just felt like I needed a little bit of a change up.
Sure. So and I will say 30th anniversary, if you get a chance to get one, give it a shot. Not too shabby first impressions.
As much Perdomo as Raj sells, I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't gotten those yet.
Yeah.
Unless he has them coming in, he just hasn't received them yet. But he sells a ton of Perdomo. That's probably like the second biggest seller next to Drew Estate.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're really popular.
Yeah, I mean, this shop had a good 8-foot section of the humidor that was just Perdomo, but there's so much Drew Estate and so much, honestly, Davidoff down by me. Dude, Davidoff has just conquered my area, and I am not a Davidoff guy at all. I mean, they make a nice stick, but
overrated.
It is, yeah, overrated.
Overrated, overpriced.
Yeah, especially when you go in the store and there's like the giant white display, and it's like, okay, how much money did they pay you? You know?
Oh, a lot. That's one brand where, like, if you see it in a shop, like that shop paid Davidoff just to be able to carry it. It's ridiculous. It's
ridiculous.
insane.
It's ridiculous.
It's like, whatever. People want them, so they sell.
Yeah.
You got to get the white glove treatment. The shop that carries them here locally, like across the county, they have like signs on it where they're like, "Don't grab these yourself. Have an employee grab them." It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, I went and I picked up there was a small box of Lennox, right?
Oh man,
and I had to grab one.
I have not had one of those in a long
I know, and they only had petite, and I was like, all right, I'll grab a petite just to have one, just to kind of side smoke, you know. And I went, and the guy was standing there, and we like introduce ourselves, and you know, the tobacconist, and we're talking. I went over and I just grabbed a Lennox out of the box, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Was I out of line there?" And he's like, "Oh no, man. Grab whatever you want." I was like, "Okay," because you never know. Sometimes they get weird about you grabbing stuff and touching stuff. You know?
As long as you're not picking it up and rolling it to listen to it, to see if it's crunchy, or like smelling it with the cellophane on, or even without the cellophane on. Believe it or not, people will take cigars that have no cellophane on them and like put them right here under their nose, and then put it back on the shelf, and like zero thought goes through their head of like, I'm rubbing snot on this to a degree, like someone else is going to buy it. Maybe that'll add some flavor to it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that's how you get COVID.
That's how you can immediately tell someone doesn't know anything about cigars. They walk into a humidor and they start picking stuff up. They're like, this sounds dry. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, guy.
So's your brain. Your brain sounds dry. Your brain smells dry.
But we're shifting gears a little bit this week, so we're going to talk about some tarantulas and other inverts and stuff. Kind of had this episode in the pipeline for a little while.
Overdue.
Yeah, I know we've done some scorpion discussion previously on some other episodes, but we never really dived much into tarantulas, which with the scorpions, that's something I kept a lot of, you know, a handful of years ago. I've been very tempted to get back into it. I see ornamentals and stuff online, and I'm like, damn it, I miss them. But then I'm like, it's a slippery slope. I know as soon as I walk through that door, there's no turning back.
There's no turning back.
There's no turning back, and it's gonna get bad. And Katie would not be happy because she kind of draws the line at the big spiders.
And there's a reason why I only ever kept Grammostola, because I know that if I kept anything else, I would do something stupid and or have an army of. I digress. Continue. Sorry.
I was on the path to have all the ornamental species.
You're a braver man than me, man.
I got pretty far, dude. Not even then. There's a guy in Savannah on Craigslist selling some lowland subfusca right now that I'm like, I think it's the guy that I used to buy from years ago. He's a really strange dude. Like, I think he does a lot of acid, like
nice,
a lot, because dude's like way out there. He's a nice guy. He's just very strange.
Yeah.
And I used to get all my tarantulas and stuff from him, and I think it's probably still him down there selling. Because it was all species that I remember he had very specifically, and it's just a random list of those, and then some other odds and ends, and it's not like rose hairs and sort of your standard bread and butter kind of stuff. But those subfusca, man,
dude, they're killer, man. Especially big adult female, killer, man. But
I like the lowland, I like the highland. They're just
you look at them wrong, and they eat your face.
That wasn't really my experience with them. I had more trouble with my sun tiger.
Really?
Than I did any of my ornamentals.
Really?
Ornamentals were really shy in my experience. I've heard Rufalata can be pretty testy. Like, they can be a little bit more spastic, like Regalis. My Regalis were never really that bad. My Ornata were never really that bad.
I was always told that Regalis was the gateway ornamental.
Yeah. They're probably the most easily managed, because mine, in my experience, were always ready to run rather than take a swing at you or anything like that. But
yeah.
still see people with videos of them holding full-grown adult ornamentals, and I'm like,
Oof.
it's not gonna kill you, but I'm not gonna.
Why?
Yeah, why? I've read bite reports, and it ain't fun.
Yeah, man.
It
I just can't
sucks.
get behind it. And then here's my thing. You see all these videos of them holding like regalis, for example, and it's just walking, just chilling. No teleporting, no levitating, no light speed. But you know that if you sneezed, it's done.
Oh yeah,
It's over. You know, if you had a tickle in your throat and you went, dude, I can't understand that. Nerve is a steel, man.
Which, I mean, they're like, if you're not doing anything, like making any quick movements or anything like that, I think you're okay. Like, it's not really gonna do anything. But yeah, again, like one wrong, if you move your head too quickly, anything like that, like those hairs and stuff that are all over their body, they can pick up air currents that are almost like, I don't think we could even really feel them, honestly.
Yeah.
But instantly they can be on your back, on the floor, on the wall, on the ceiling.
Teleport.
Like I've had that happen with a regalis. Like it just, I was moving it into, I think, a bigger container, and it just decided it wasn't going in there, and it went from like in front of me to across the room in what felt like a second. Like they move really fast.
Just a blink, bro.
Yeah.
Oof, but just a blink. Hey, you got a Sri Lankan tattooed in your arm?
No, this is a regalis.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. They're I take my shirt off to check wind direction. Freaking Sanchez.
Oh man.
Freak.
Dude, I imagine Sanchez has a secret cupboard that his family doesn't know about, and it's just mason jars filled with ornamentals.
That's the dangerous part about them, dude. Like those and scorpions is like you can keep an ungodly amount of them in such a small amount of space that it's just that's why it's such a slippery slope. If they took up way more space, it'd be a different story. But it was just got out of hand when I had them. Like
I was neurotic, which I think saved me from having more than I could have. Is that I had like 6 or 7 visionariums that I wasn't using anymore. So I stacked them all, and they all had key locks because I used to keep venomous in them. And I would stack the deli cups in the visionariums, almost kind of like a museum display. And I was like, I don't have any more.
Stores do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People can't walk away with delis.
Yeah. Yeah. But this was, in my childhood bedroom. And dude, I realized that like when you get over 100 deli cups, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is not who I am. And more power to people that do. If you're a bug person, rock and roll, man. If that's your passion, do it. But for me, I was like, this is too many deli cups. So
yeah, it was either the little tiny saucer ones with slings in them, or like the quart sized jugs, and then gallon jugs, and then I had some aquariums that had like some cobalt blues in them, and somehow ended up with a centipede at one point that I absolutely was mortified at. Like I wasn't like scared to like look at it or anything, but like going in that cage, if I lifted up the hide and that thing started moving, boy, I'd squeal.
See, I didn't have
those
many.
Things give me the willies, dude.
I didn't have many centipedes, but the ones I did have were, I made sure I never had giants. I think I had one Haitian once, and I wound up giving it to underground because I was like, this is too sketchy for me. But most of the stuff I had, I just did container inside a container inside of a bigger container, just in case, Chinese tiger legs and Texas or Arizona tiger legs.
Yeah, I would have much rather have to have moved a heteroscodra or something like that than deal with that freaking centipede, man.
Yeah. One time I was working for my buddy Jay, and he got in a Malayan shipment, and it was like 150 cobalt blues, and they were all in black old school film canisters. So
how big were they? They must have been fairly small then.
Oh no, they're all adults. They literally
an adult cobalt.
They shoved them in a black film canister.
The physics behind that don't even add up.
Exactly. So the minute you crack sunlight into that jet black film
It's on.
canister, it's on like Donkey Kong. And I got through like 15 or 20 of them, and I didn't have any get out. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Fuck this. And I told him, I was like, you got to do it, bro. I'm not doing it.
Those are nerve wracking too.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those, you never see them, and after you've dealt with them enough times, you're kind of glad.
Yeah.
Like, they're pretty spiders, but dude, when they're pissed and they're out of that hole,
yeah,
it's
and I feel
they're
like
either running or fighting, or they're doing a little bit of both. And
the fact that the film canisters were black and you couldn't see if the spider was alive, you couldn't see if it was upside down, you couldn't see how big it was, just made it so much worse, man. But
yeah, they're pretty spiders, and I loved them. But they were boring, and when you did see them, it was usually a pretty nasty encounter. So
yeah,
angry spiders.
Yeah, that is a good thing though. If you got their attention, they would stay and fight, which was good. Because then you could kind of finagle them into a bigger deli cup, or you could grab them with the soft tip hemostats or soft tip tweezers. But dude, like, you had to like almost get their attention so they'd stop and rear up, and then you're like, okay, now I have the situation under control.
Stop moving for 10 seconds.
Just 10 seconds. Well, on that note, now that we've shit talked the amazing creatures we're going to be talking about, would you care to introduce our wonderful guest?
So it is our buddy here, Nisarg.
What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man.
Or Nisarg Shah, I should say. Here to talk about some tarantulas.
Yeah.
Because you have a perspective that I think a lot of people, at least in the tarantula world, probably don't, in that you've been like in country in some of these areas and seeing them firsthand. The only experience I think Phil and I have is just the Aphonopelma in Texas.
Agreed.
Unless he's happened to see, like, don't they have pink toes and stuff in South Florida somewhere? Is there like a...
They do. So there's a population of pink toes, and there's a population of Mexican
vegans, right?
red. Yeah, vegans. Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that in a second, because they're not brachypelma anymore.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, I'm way behind the times, but I have not seen the pink toes or the red rumps in Florida at all, which is probably a good thing, right? And there was a species that I saw in Arizona, which I want to say is it the same as the one in Texas, or they split?
It's a Aphonopelma. I don't know if it's the same species.
Okay. So yeah.
In Arizona, there's like a very large number of like different kind of Aphonopelma species. There's
really?
There's a number of dwarf species. There's a number of just like general like calicodes or chalicodes, however you would like to pronounce it. Caveat is I may not be pronouncing the names right, but they're how I've been pronouncing them forever. So
that's cool, man. It's cool.
Yeah, and I feel bad because common names are going to be a tough one, because honestly, with a lot of the tarantulas, I don't even know what the common name is.
If there even is one.
If there even is one, so there is going to be a lot of scientific names dropped.
Well, I don't see Jeff Frederick, so I think we're safe.
Yeah, I found that especially with more so tarantulas and scorpions more so than reptiles. When I did travel to South America to kind of find them, our common names are different, obviously very much so different than the ones in South America, and it varies by state too.
Sure.
So I just kind of went to just the scientific name or just showing a photo whenever I travel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I picked up the habit of using nomenclature over common names, is because like when you're in inverts, like that's the standard. That's what people use. Like common names are used on occasion, but it's because like we're saying, there's so many common names across, a range of something, be it different, languages, dialects, whatever. Common names are kind of pointless. Like you could say an orange baboon, and that isn't really going to narrow things down a whole lot, because there's plenty of other orange spiders that are similar in structure and stuff to some of the baboon tarantulas, that it's like, are we talking about Oh, I'm blanking on that. OBTs.
Tarantulas marinus.
Yes. Those, that narrows it down automatically. I know exactly what we're talking about. So
Yeah, and then even with that species in itself, there's what some people refer to as color forms of them, depending on their locales. However, I think they're different species. They probably are different species, just not enough taxonomic work has been done on them, and plenty of other tarantulas like that. But yeah, I feel like every single time I hop back into the hobby, there's a new common name for the same species, and it gets kind of hard to try to narrow it down because you have different shops selling different, trying to sell different,
yeah.
like spiders with this same spider with different names, essentially.
Yeah.
So what's your sort of you can give us the Cliff Notes version or the long version as far as your background and herps and inverts, and what are you keeping currently, and sort of that whole spiel.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm born and raised in Chicago. Obviously, Chicago doesn't have that many herps. I grew up chasing garter snakes, basically, just grabbing them, putting them in my pockets, running inside. Kind of a similar story that many people have. Funny enough was my parents immigrated over from India. So the running joke was my mom's like, we came to the United States to keep you away from the jungle, and you're out here things and keep these things.
That's great.
So like, even to this day, she really just gives me a lot of crap for that in a loving way.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a young kid, I was always fascinated by the things that not many people liked, including like tarantulas, snakes, scorpions, and things like that. It kind of evolved into I was trying to find more natural spaces. Fortunately, not so much in Chicago. So I started working at Brookfield Zoo, which is in Chicago when I was in high school, or in Brookfield, Illinois, not in Chicago. And then from there, I got my bachelor's in wildlife biology and conservation. I worked in a couple of different labs, mainly looking at amphibians, looking at rhinovirus, chytrid in South America, and then working in some plant focus labs. And yeah, through there, I got I learned how to like travel more throughout South America. So I took some trips down there for tarantulaing. I don't know, the herping version of looking for
spidering.
Yeah, there you go.
Spidering. We got to come up with it. We got to coin a term.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, and yeah, through there, I haven't been recently, but my last trip was to Arizona with some friends out there. We looked for some fauna Palmo, which is wild to see how different it is looking for different types of or different species of tarantulas in different areas, like looking down in South America, which is all about sometimes even like flipping a board, you might find one, or just walking past a tree that could be in the roots. Whereas in Arizona, it was more so just like us carrying gallons of water and putting them down the holes and hoping there's something down there, or even just flipping rocks for the dwarf species.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've seen them do that where they basically flood the burrow. And I always wondered if that was detrimental to a certain degree, because I imagine when the rains come, it's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I don't see it being an issue. If anything, it probably helps them because it's adding more humidity down there into that burrow.
Yeah, basically my understanding is that the ground soaks up all the water really really pretty quickly, and especially where you find a lot where we were at with calicotes, it was. I know we returned to the previous ones the same day. It was pretty much dry by the time we got back.
Wow.
And it is in your best judgment to not dump multiple gallons down a hole either, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, because sometimes it won't even come out either, or it could just be empty.
Wow.
Yeah, we saw some in West Texas when we were out there, and it was cool because that was the first time I had seen any tarantula in the wild. You know, we don't have them here. The closest thing we have is wolf spiders, and some of them get big enough to be like, that's damn near a tarantula, but it's just not the same. It was really cool to just kind of randomly find the burrows in some of the cuts, and then even sort of on that property, that Airbnb we were staying at, there was a couple just burrowed randomly kind of in the ground, and seeing them waiting outside of it and kind of hanging out. And
yeah, there was one night we saw a ton of them just out cruising, like they were cruising the cuts, you know?
Yeah, those were probably mature. and just walking around in search of females.
Mhm.
I know people call them the migrate, like a tarantula migration. It's not really a migration at all. It's just like males looking for a mate, but it's still pretty cool to see, and I'd love to see it at some point.
Yeah, it wasn't like wildebeest on the Serengeti or anything, but if you went to a cut and you saw one tarantula, you'd go to another cut 10 minutes down the road and there'd be 10 or 15. So still cool.
We have Asper wolves here. They used to be Hogna, but I think it changed in 2012.
Yeah, I was gonna say the biggest thing we have down here is Hogna lenta, which I don't know if that's still a thing.
It's the state spider of South Carolina, for anyone who was wondering.
What, Hogna lenta?
Not that species, but
okay.
I think it's
Hogna in general.
Caroliniensis or something.
Yeah,
like that.
it's Hogna caroliniensis.
Yeah, I don't know.
Very cool.
They're everywhere.
The worst for eye shine, man. Dude, it's like it's just speckles everywhere, and you're like spider, 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 spider.
Yeah, you take a flashlight out there, dude, and you just shine on the ground, and all of a sudden there's just all these little green and blue lights all over the place. And you're like, what's that?
Yeah.
And Katie asked me one night, she's like, what are all those little glowing things? I'm like, ton of spiders.
Blades of grass.
Yeah.
That's actually how I would go looking for tarantulas down in South America. Sometimes like right on the side of the road when they're just like mounds of dirt where they've made their burrows. Just a quick flashlight over there, and you can see tons of them sometimes, depending on the night. And yeah, it's really pretty wild.
That's awesome. So let's dive in that real quick. It's so often that we as herpers go out looking for reptiles and amphibians, and then we find cool inverts as what we call bycatch. What's it like to go spidering, if you will, and then have reptiles and amphibians be your bycatch?
Yeah, I actually think that's like pretty great, just because like I'm into both of them. Like I've had to herp for work, like doing surveys before even down in South America when we were looking for marsupial frogs, Gastrotheca species. Finding tarantulas were just like a major plus on that. And it feels like the good thing is you're never going home without anything.
Yeah.
It's you're going to see one thing or another. I found that herps are sometimes a bit easier to find. It's easy to find out where, like, especially with the eye shining, just like finding where they are. But the moment you get close to them, either when you try to like get closer to their burrows, you inadvertently touch one of their webs, and they dart back in. That is a whole fishing kind of game. I'm not sure if you guys heard of tarantula fishing before, but
no, do go on, please.
Yeah, so it's basically you take a long piece of grass or a long like thin stick, and you kind of mimic the movements of a prey item walking by, and that'll slowly entice the tarantula to come out. Yeah, but like even the smallest wrong movement could send them back in their burrow. So it is a bit frustrating, but once you get good at it, it's a pretty solid thing. It's more so better for tropical species, I found, just because in the deserts, with the fauna palma, for example, you don't know how long the burrows are going to go. You're wasting your time, or it could be that during the dry season when they're not very much active. But down in South America, you'd be surprised to see how explosive some of the species are. Just they like come right out, and there's like boom, like a 6-inch tarantula right over there. So you got that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I watched a thing on YouTube once of guys looking for Venezuelan sun tigers, and again, you were talking about like in the root systems.
You want to find those?
Because they're gorgeous, man.
They are gorgeous, but God, they're horrible.
Gorgeous. And they would find these tiny little, size of a quarter or even silver dollar size hole at the base of a thick fig tree or something, and they would get a really long, skinny twig, and it was kind of like the running joke, like, you go as far as you can, but be prepared to just drop the stick, because the minute they would put the stick down the hole, the sun tiger would burst out of the hole, and if you weren't quick enough dropping that stick, that thing was right on your hand.
Too. Those things
move
quick.
But yeah, I didn't know if that was kind of your MO too. If you just keep it outside the hole, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough. Like I grew up kind of like as much as I loved spiders and everything, I grew up kind of an arachnophobe too. Like growing up, I would catch like black widows and or I'd like buy recluses online or pick them up somewhere, and those were fine just because they're smaller. But with the tarantulas, uh, they took a while to get used to their size, and even now, I'm not one to hold them. I have kind of a mentality of similar to like fish: look, don't touch.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I say mostly it's because it's the welfare for the animal, but just because like I am like a past arachnophobe, it's like I could be a bit jerky in my movements, and I don't
Sure.
want to. I know a lot of people are better at that, but yeah, I haven't. Oddly enough, the only tarantulas I've held were some of the wild ones I've come across. None of my personal ones that I've had over the years I've held intentionally.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I was always kind of the same way. Like I had some avicularia that I'd hold every now and then. Some of the pink toes. It was very rarely like something I did on purpose. It would be like I'm moving it into something bigger, or it's getting a quick, clean out because of all the boluses and stuff that they leave behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where it's like they're delicate. I mean, some of the arboreal species, they can handle a fall, but still on like a hard surface, it doesn't take much to get that abdomen to rupture, and that's where all like the vital organs are and stuff, like their heart and everything. And then getting bit by any species, regardless of if it's old world, new world, whatever, it ain't going to be any fun. And then if you're talking new world stuff, getting haired, so they have the urticating hairs on the abdomen as well that they'll rub off, and that stuff's like fiberglass. So if you've ever gotten fiberglass in you, it sucks. It ain't any
miserable.
fun. Even like being haired was enough. Like I was keeping oh my god, salmon pink bird eaters, Parahybana,
Lixodora.
Yeah, I'd see them kick, and as soon as I'd see them start flicking hair and stuff, I'd close that thing, and I'm like, I'm out of here, because
Dude, the first ever Mexican red knee I ever had, everyone talked about how this is the best first spider. They're the friendliest. They're the nicest. Dude, that thing's abdomen was bald from kicking hairs in the first week that I had it. I kept a roll of duct tape right next to the enclosure, right next to the tank, because every single time I go to do anything, I just got hairs in my hand. So,
yeah, after I got in the lining of my nose and stuff around the outside, I was like, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah, definitely. I found that a lot of people, or at least with some of the tarantulas I've had, a lot of people assign stereotypes to certain species of tarantulas. Like, for example, like the Haitian brown bird eater, the Formitipus cancerides. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them, but they're very kind of touted as very defensive. I've been lucky to have ones, I guess, that were the complete opposite. Even my mature females that were like 6-inch plus, or they would much rather run than that. However, I've had Brachypelma, and I believe it's pronounced Tulitocado, which are the red rumps that have been split off in there. So the Baggins, Sabulosum, again, I apologize for the pronunciation.
No, you're good. You're good.
Have been broken off into that other genus, but those I've gotten some like spawn of Satans, and always pressure, no kicking. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how each individual is. A lot of people don't really think that individual spiders will act different from one another, but in my experience, they definitely do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've had some rose hairs that were really mellow and chill, and I've had some rose hairs that were not at all.
Yeah, ARF. That the Haitian one you spoke of, is that the one there's a viral video of a 5 or 6 year old girl who clearly is in the Caribbean somewhere, lives there, and she's got these giant tarantulas walking around, and she's like hugging them. And obviously, because she's 6 years old or 5 years old, they look way bigger. I mean, they're big size. They're probably saucer sized. Is that the Haitian one?
No, so that was actually taken in South America. I remember that when that came around, we were trying to identify them just because the video wasn't the best quality.
Right.
I think at the time we got it down to Lasiodora or Grammostola, either one of those. But yeah, that was That was definitely an interesting video.
Yeah,
I'll have
and
to
it's
find it because I'd be willing to bet it was probably Lasiodora.
yeah, it's
yeah, but you can tell that it definitely had a and this is going to sound very anecdotal, but it had a Gramastola vibe. Like it was just a chill
I mean,
spider.
there's definitely a build that Grandma Stola has that is
Right.
like you can look at it and be like, if you look at a curly hair and then you look at like a pulcra,
Yeah.
like okay, those have the same sort of build. Obviously, the pulcra is going to be bigger, but
Right, but I was just shocked at the size of these. I mean, obviously it's deceiving because the girl is so tiny, but the size of the spider and the fact that it's so slow moving and so not a care in the world. And this girl is for lack of a better word, manhandling the spiders. And there's like 6 or 7 of them in the grass, like walking around her, and she's just like picking them up like they're kittens.
see if I can
you
find
know?
it.
Yeah. I always wanted to know what
Now
species
I'm
that was
curious.
because I was fascinated with it. And like going back to what we're talking about, just because it's Gramastola, just because it's a rose hair doesn't mean anything. So like I kept a handful of pulchra, and I loved pulchra, man. They're probably to this day my favorite tarantula species because they were so chill, so mellow, never reared up, never kicked hairs, and it's just this big black cuddly looking spider, if you could say that out loud. But what appealed to me most was my father had a rose hair for almost 20 years, and I couldn't hold it because I had some kind of skin allergen to its, even the hairs on its feet. It never kicked, it never reared up, it never displayed any kind of defensiveness. But every time I picked that spider up just to coddle it, my hands would immediately break out in like a red hives on my palms. But when I did it with the pulchra, I never had a problem. So I went up just never holding rose hairs ever again.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I've definitely found that everybody, at least like in my look, my friends I've spoken to, we react to different species hairs completely differently. Lasiodora is absolutely one of the worst for me. That's the reason why I just don't keep them. As much as I love them, I don't want to have to deal with their hairs. But whereas other genus, because I focused over time, I kind of focused more on large New World terrestrials. So Pamphobedius senestus, Theraphosa. Theraphosa's hairs did bother me. I just kind of put up with them, but Pamphobedius senestus, they didn't bother me as much to the point where if I got haired, as long as it wasn't like an intense amount, I would kind of be fine.
But now, like even with the Theraphosa, like that's just, you said you don't handle your spiders too much, but was that you just picking them up and holding them, or was that actually them kicking?
Oh, that's some of them are from kicking. Other ones is just like when you open up the enclosure, kind of have like the wind goes in, or rehousing.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, those are whatever they are. They're males for sure, and I want to say
Yeah.
that's got to be Parahybana or some other Lasiodora species for sure. But they're definitely males because look at how leggy they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or they could just be the fact that they're wild and they're not as plump.
No,
as we
I
would
don't
see
think
them.
so, man. As fuzzy and as much leg as those are, I think those are males.
Yeah.
But go ahead, bro.
Oh, sorry. I can't see the video too well because I'm on my phone currently. But I think I do see like the pedipalps, the bulbous pedipalp. So I'm pretty sure they're also male too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have that very thin abdomen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On their mind.
But I mean, and it's an adorable video too, because like this girl is so cute and she's got her big fuzzy spider, or spiders, I should say. And it is so deceiving because she's so tiny and the spider's so big. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember when that video first started coming out, the comments were like, oh, that's a 14-inch spider, or that's a 20-inch spider going around. And yeah, no, size is definitely
nuts.
Yeah, there's also some forced perspective there. She's holding her arms out and excuse me. I imagine that even if let's say that was a 6 or 7 inch diameter spider, her hands are maybe 3 inches long, if that, because she's so tiny, but still super adorable.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I never really held mine either. I mean, I kept a lot of oral world stuff, which is
you just don't do
typically, yeah. But mostly like if you're handling them like that and they're moving, it's harder to read sort of the body language of them. Like some of those species, like the Tarantulas, the Murnus, the OBTs, like when they're pissed, they're standing up, the threat display's there. It's obvious that they're going to bite you if you get near them. But like if you have one that's on the move, like there's plenty of bite reports of people where, their heteroscodra or any of that other stuff got loose and, it was crawling on their arm because it bolted out of the tub and they just happened to get bit as it kept walking. Like it was just one of those things where you can't really read them that well, especially when you're handling them. And I just why bother? Like, why risk it? I don't feel the need to handle them or play with them. Like I agree that it's like a goldfish. Like they're not really meant to be played with. I don't.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Same with scorpions.
Yeah, I've kept enough too, and just seeing them take down food and everything, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave you guys be. I'll just I'll just watch.
Yeah.
The flat rock scorpions I would handle those semi-regularly because those were cool. Those were fun.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're the guest. Go on.
Oh, no, I was saying, speaking of like flat rock scorpions and Grammostola rosea, the Chilean rosea, it's pretty wild to come back into the hobby and see what was really abundant and very cheap back in the day to now. I remember when Chile closed off exports, and then the price shot up to you get a small a Grammostola rosea sling for like $7,500, and that won't grow into what we commonly see as an adult for the next like at least 6 years.
Yeah, easy.
And then not knowing if it's going to be male or female.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the reasons why I was the guy who had like 100 deli cups and everything, just because whenever species came in, I was so worried that it wouldn't be bred, especially when it comes to like Pamphobedius, Zanesta species. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the hobby, unfortunately, when it comes to breeding. They want to keep the secrets to themselves. So I would grab up like maybe 3 or 4 just to increase my odds of getting a female.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. When you're dealing with younger, like slings, baby spiders like that, you have to kind of play it's a numbers game. You got to kind of play the odds and get multiples, because obviously your chances of getting one or the other with a single animal are 50-50, but it sucks when you've been raising up a spider for 2 years and then it gets that one shed where all of a sudden it's like that's a male, because of how it is like within one shed. They'll look female as small ones because they're stocky, they're built, and then they'll have that shed and they're like, or that molt, and it's like that's a boy, damn it.
Yeah.
I remember dropping more money than I would like to say on a single Pamphobedius nigricolor back when they first entered the hobby in the United States.
Which one's that?
Pamphobedius nigricolor. It's, I believe, I'm very reluctant to say the common name with that genus just because they all have the same common name. Okay. But if you were to look it up, it's mature males are absolutely gorgeous. That's one reason why I also like the Pamphobedius zanesta genus, is that even if you get a male, they're like bright pink, purple, blues, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. But it ended up being a male, and of course, nobody else had a female like that I knew. And with tarantulas, I would say like more so than I found with snakes in the hobby. That just because, let's say 20 or 50 or even 100 enter in the hobby, how many adults do you see from that down the line?
Yeah.
You don't see very many of them.
Yes, I know that one.
Yeah, so a lot of those
not the right species.
Oh, it's not?
Yeah. So this is actually one of the reasons I was mentioning Justin before. So all those aren't the right species either. It's something that's kind of been the bane of my existence when it comes to the hobby. That one, I believe. Could you type in Colombian? in the Pamphobia sneaker color Colombian.
That requires me to be able to spell.
You got it. There's no red line.
All right, so I guess that's still wrong. But this is kind of a good segue to go into to talk about kind of taxonomy, especially within the hobby itself and what we know.
The nightmare that is.
Yeah. So I've always had a gripe with tarantulas. So a lot of tarantulas come into the country, a lot of different species from different countries, obviously, and a lot of the time they're just given, especially with Pamphobedius, they're kind of given an arbitrary kind of labeling to what they think it is based on what it looks like.
Sure.
We don't always have the locality data. Some collectors withhold that information from us,
or they just don't know.
Yeah,
yeah.
Especially because sometimes coming out of these countries, they're not brought in legally either, so they're really kind of quiet about like where they got it from, and there's a lot of, for example, Pamphobia sneaker color. The images that were first coming up were of a tarantula, an undescribed Pamphobia species from a different country completely. So that was a real kind of mix up to begin with, and then when we got the true one in, that even became more confusing for a lot of people, just because they're like, okay, which one's a type species? Which one should I breed together? Should I try breeding them? Unfortunately or thankfully, that's a genus that's very hard to breed in captivity. It requires you to simulate like a rainy season, a dry season, as well as temperature drops, to kind of even to drop an egg sac or even mating. But yeah, that and the kind of like the labeling of whenever you see, for example, like Haplopelma species Bachma, that's a described species. We know the general area, but sometimes I'm unfamiliar with Bachma. I'm not sure if that's a name of a town or a name of kind of a province, but that narrows it down to sometimes a group of spiders that when they come in, they could be all have the same label, but they could be all different species. For that, so that's been my one kind of big gripe with that. But thankfully, we did
a justifiable gripe.
Yeah, and then it kind of gets into I've spent a lot of time just going back and forth with people, saying like, "Oh, this may not be the spider that you bought." They get angry, they get defensive, and it goes back and forth from there. But thankfully, we do have some arachnologists in the hobby that are more than willing to look at some molts and kind of help give you a general like, oh, they're more aligned with this species. Walker von Worth, I believe that's his name. He focuses mainly more on Asian Theraphosidae, especially the Cereopagopus, Haplopelma, Omothymus, that genera. So he's been really good with helping out with that. But when it comes to the species that I like, unfortunately, or that I've kept more mainly, I've unfortunately been kind of a crap hole, especially when you have a lot of Ecuadorian Pamphobia species that look very similar. And when some not so great sellers want to make more money on them, they'll just give them a different name and sell them like that, and then that just muddies it down even further.
Taking a play out of the old Chondro importer book.
Yep.
That's what happened with the red rum species. Like,
oh, really?
Not until recently, we've had the type species come in with actually locality information because they were brought over legally from Mexico. So now you could have a true vagans, not just what we consider like a hobby mutt. Same thing with Albopilosum. For there's two branches. There's the hobby form, which have been kind of like bred with whatever over time, and now there's a true form, and you can tell the differences. If the hairs are curly or not. There's some other differences with that. I'm not too well versed. It's been
because most of the vegans in the past, they were Honduran or Nicaraguan, right? They weren't Mexican. Or maybe it's a different species nowadays, but back then.
Yeah, and the thing is, back then, especially because like, oh, if a tarantula look the same, they're the same.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna breed. which there's very minute differences with tarantulas more so than some other species. It could just be a sex organ difference, and back then we just didn't know, or some people just didn't care.
Yeah, because like Smith eye is not a thing anymore, is it?
Nope.
Yeah, I know that got chopped up too.
Yeah, I believe. Don't quote me on this one because it's been a minute since I've looked at it. I believe it still is. However, what we have in the hobby, or we thought was Smith eye, is not. It's Morai, and there's a whole mix up in there. I remember when that came in, and that got really messy. There's a big disparity between the scientific community as well as the hobby. When it comes to tarantulas, some people are more akin to why bother changing names? Keep on naming. We're still going to call it what it is, and yeah, it was really interesting to be in the hobby at the time for when the names got updated, especially to tarantulas that are as iconic as Brachypelma.
Yeah,
a lot of people were very active to change, but
yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, because I'm on Swift inverts right now, and they've got a lot of those, Haplopelma species, Haiti type locality things, and
yeah. Funny enough, that species that's I thought at least back when I was in it was Cereopagabus species. Like hottie. I believe that means danger or heart or something similar to that. Just because if you get bit by one, it kind of makes your heart going like it'll affect your heart like to an extent. It's pretty interesting.
I never kept Stromatopelma. It was always I heard a lot of sketchy things about those. Man, that was never one that I got into.
Yeah, Stromatopelma calceatum. There's a I've kept I had one adult female. I actually conned my sister's boyfriend into getting it to me once. There was at a pet store. I'm like, hey, I'll put in a good word to my family if you get me this tarantula. And he brings over this like mature female in this 32-ounce deli cup. I'm like, I was not prepared for that. I thought it was going to come in like an actual enclosure. And that was one of my first arboreal species. So that was a nice introduction. But yeah, them and Heteroscota maculata have always kind of made me a little bit nervous when working with them.
Yeah, I kept a lot of maculata.
Yeah, like my method when it comes to rehousing is I have an enclosure inside a larger tub, and I just wet everything down. Like I take a spray bottle. That gives them a lot of trouble trying to climb over it.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I hope and pray and use a 32-ounce deli cup.
Yeah. I like those long, like the tall Gladware containers. That was always my go-to. Is like because at least if they're gonna run up in it, they're likely to like hit the end of it and just stay there.
Yeah,
it's pretty rare that I had one sort of turn around and come back out. But yeah, it was always like the maculata in particular. Every time I had to rehouse those, it was always like, just want to get this over with because those things were nutty.
Yeah, those guys and Salmopoeus, the Erminia, like the sun tiger, that those two always kind of were more flighty to me than the Poecilotheria. With the Poecilotheria, as long as I didn't have any bright lights or anything going on, they were completely chill. But yeah, the Salmopoeus, they were more willing to put up stand up, put up a fight, which sometimes made it easier. But when they're doing laps around the enclosure, that gets like, all right, well, maybe I'll try another day.
The little orange lightning bolts on their feet are what give them. That's their power up. That's them. That lets you know they're charged and fully ready to go.
Like the Flash.
Yeah. Yeah, I only had one or two of those at one point, and that one was the one female I had. She it did not take much to get her to stand up and start tapping things.
Yeah, that's one genus that don't have hair on their urticating hairs on their abdomens, so they rely more. So their venom is a bit more potent than other New World species because it kind of makes up for it. And I guess that's also like what why they're a bit more defensive as well.
Makes sense. The I don't know what it is about the ornamentals though, man. That's what was always what I was drawn to the most with the tarantulas in particular was those, and then some of the dwarf species. I kept the I think it's the Heterothele villicella.
Okay.
The little tiny communal ones those were really cool. And then I had some Topinocenius that were neat as well.
What's Topinocenius?
That's like a Caribbean, like a smaller arboreal Caribbean species.
Yeah, like a dwarf aviculara kind of thing.
Not quite.
They're more aligned. They're in the Psalmoponiinae family. Pronunciation again off.
Yeah, no worries.
I think I had a Plumipes. I don't remember.
Yeah, I know that their taxonomy went through the ringer too recently. Well, not recently, within the last number of years. I haven't really worked with them too much, just because I was more of a terrestrial guy. Once my first arboreal species ended up on the ceiling, my roommates weren't too happy.
Yeah, yeah.
I should probably focus more on things like, or like terrestrial tarantulas.
Oh, they're good looking.
Yeah, they were cool little spiders.
Yeah,
pretty flighty.
They look super velvety.
Yeah,
yeah. They have a very velvety look to them.
I'm gonna try and pull some of these up as we're talking about them, so people can see what we're discussing. Because I feel bad because we're like dropping all these names and stuff.
Yeah,
but these are the maculatos talking about.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're pretty cool, man.
Cases. They're very pretty spiders. Like they're really cool, but my God, they can be a handful, dude. That's a gnarly bite too.
My one issue with this one, with these guys, was they absolutely, at least in my experience, they love to crap on the side of their, like on the glass on their enclosure. So it's always constantly they're cleaning it up and everything.
Yeah, it's very, very baboonish with a aviculara type structure.
Yeah. Oh, one fun fact about avicularia, by the way, is that when they're feeling agitated, especially if you're handling them, they're known to shoot poop cannons.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've had versicolor, I've had metallicus, I've had a Vic, which I don't think that's not a thing anymore, is it?
It got broken down into multiple different morphotypes.
Okay, so a Vic got broke down, or just avicular as a whole?
I wouldn't say avicularia as a whole got broken down.
Okay.
Back and forth, especially.
Yeah, because versicolor is now monotypic, I think, isn't it?
Oh no, there's Carabina versicolor and Carabina lata.
Yeah,
they both are bright blue as babies, but Carabina lata, which is the Puerto Rican pink toe, it matures into a brown color for both males, and more defensive than versicolor. They're more than willing. Like I've had slings throw up their postures.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool, man. Yeah, my buddy had
one species of avicularia I always wanted that you never saw. I'm trying to remember what it was.
There's a bunch we never saw.
Yeah, and there's even more in the hobby now too, especially with avicularis with the purple colored ones. I'm blanking on the names of them. What?
The Purpia?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that one. There's
Purpurea, I should say.
Yeah, Purpurea.
When they were brought in, I believe like a number of them, just them being purple, were given that kind of name because that's what they thought. But it turns out to be some are from Colombia, some are from Ecuador.
Wow.
There are some that don't. There are some that their setae are tipped in white or gray, so they're different species too. But yeah, and some grow extremely slow, whereas some grow a bit faster. The vicularia have always kind of been my have been like been fascinated with them. I haven't kept many of them, but I've kept a purpurea, and that was probably one of the slowest avicularias I've
Really?
ever, like growth wise, that I've ever had.
Do they still have the speedy? What's the word I'm looking for? The flightiness, but not run away. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I didn't find them to be that flighty, especially
Okay.
at things. They weren't doing like laps around compared to some of my carabiner that I've had. I've also have a limited sample size. Like I believe I only had 5 purpurea and then 4 carabiner species just from what like some friends produced. They sent over in trades and stuff. But yeah, I have found the purpurea to be a bit more fragile. I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but in the hobby, there's this quote unquote syndrome called SADS. It's called sudden avicular death syndrome.
Really?
Yeah, I chalk it down to at least in my experience. What happens with a lot of keepers is that they buy avicularia species from pet shops that are wild caught, and you're looking at a species that lives in trees, so there's a constant amount of airflow going through, and then when you put it in more in a stagnant environment, sometimes they don't do as well.
Yeah.
Yes, especially as slings or when they're like wild caught, many of them die. I've just had mine, at least one. Um, it got stuck in its molt, and things like that happen. That's another reason why I get multiple, just because
Sure.
I generally try to, whenever I've had tarantulas stuck in molt, I try to help with like paintbrushes and tweezers. But when they're small, like 3/4 of an inch, they're not really much.
Yeah.
And I think my experience with avicularia slings was like they don't handle getting dry well at all. Like
Yeah.
they
Oh,
seem to
no.
really,
No.
you have to really keep them almost wet.
Yeah, and then
Well,
if you keep them wet but not enough ventilation, that's also another issue too.
yeah. I was just gonna say is I'm in South Florida, and you don't want to give a baby a Vic this beautiful arboreal enclosure like it probably deserves because it's tiny, and so you keep it in a smaller deli cup. Well, not realizing the humidity in that deli cup is so high, and the humidity in the room just from being in South Florida, you'll get some white fuzz mold, and now the small little the size of a pea mold to us is no big deal, but to a little baby spider that is breathing in those spores, I've seen it where they just go belly up real quick from that.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that being in Florida, some species are amazingly well kept over there. I've had one of my friends. He was one of the few people to breed Xenestus in the United States. Uh, he was able to get in. I guess like the humidity and everything, and the way you guys have like your rainy kind of weather,
Yeah.
were more in tune for that. So it was perfect for him, and he was able to get them to breed. Whereas keeping some higher elevation species, I'm blanking on the name of the new genus they were put into, but Megaphobema mesomelos. Um, that was one. It was recently redescribed, but they're found in Costa Rica in the cloud forest, and they cannot get. You can't keep them warm at all, like super warm as you would like some other species. Otherwise, they will. There's talks that some people think that the males go infertile, but yeah, they will quickly perish in warmer temperatures to the point where some people have even kept them in wine coolers.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild, man. It's cloud forest spiders. I love it. It's awesome.
And then one of the species that I found up in the Andes when I was working, it's really like dwarf species. I believe it's a Haplotremus. Not too sure. I sent some off to an arachnologist in Peru, but they never got back to me. That one would definitely need to be kept in a wine cooler or a lock cooler kind of environment, just because that area barely reached into like the mid 70s.
That's incredible. Do you remember the elevation?
Not off the top of my head. I believe I could. I could send it to you after, but it was like
Yeah.
something that nobody really thought of, just because it was. Even the locals, when I was talking to them, I'm like, "Oh, have you ever seen any tarantulas over here?" Just out of curiosity, and they're like, "No, we don't." They're like, "We've never seen one down there, up over here. They're only at this certain level. We've never seen them whatsoever."
Wow. That's awesome.
So you did send me some pictures of some stuff.
Yeah. So that's the habitat shot that I got from when I was looking for a phonopelma marxi type. I'm not 100% sure it was marxi. That's why I'm calling them marxi type, just because, again, with those dwarf phonopelma, they could be any. This was up. There was still snow on the ground on this area.
Wow.
When I was over there.
And what country? I'm sorry.
This is Arizona.
Arizona. Okay.
And then that's the marxi type.
Angry little, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Dwarf and Palma, but they're very, very spicy.
See, it's funny because the same way I was with dart frogs, like I really got a kick out of dwarf species when it came to tarantulas too.
Yeah, I
didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah, like how big is the spider in this photo?
Not very big at all. I want to say it 3 inches.
Oh wow.
3.5
inches. Yeah, it's deceiving, like on that bark.
Yeah, and it matured in the next after the next molt.
Oh wow.
Or it was the penultimate. One of my friends ended up collecting it because we moved the rock, and that was the burrow it was in, and then it wasn't as deep as some of the desert species, so we're able to find it. One of my friends collected to give the molt to a researcher to try to figure out what species it was, or if it was a new species.
Wow.
And
very cool.
Female Chalcodes.
Yeah, that's gorgeous, man.
And we're out, and that was kind of like the typical kind of environment.
Yeah, I was gonna say that is what you think of when you think desert tarantula.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that was the burrow. With Chalcodes more so than the marxi, you'd keep an eye out for that kind of webbing around the burrow. Just because if that wasn't present, then it could probably be like a wolf spider species or different other species. We came across a lot. I know you guys were talking about centipedes before. Came across a lot of polymorpha. Was bit a few times.
Really?
Yeah, I tried my hardest not to like fling my hand back.
Oh jeez.
But yeah.
All right. So what's it feel like to get bit by polymorpha?
So those ones were very small. So thankfully, not much. But anything a bit bigger than that, I probably wouldn't want to get bit by.
I mean, what did it? Was it a throbbing pain? Was it a searing pain? I mean,
it was more so just the initial pinch.
Okay.
That pinch kind of feeling, and then it was kind of like throbbing for a short amount of time, but like within like that, gone.
Oh, excellent.
And then that is Megaphobema velvetosoma. I actually, when I was working down in Ecuador, over near a town called Mira, that's near the Amazon. It was right under, like, I literally just flipped a board, and it was
hanging out. Wow.
Yeah, I was hoping for, like, I was looking for snakes, but I took that. That was a large female.
No, wrong way. Facebook has this all reversed.
I know, it's frustrating, right?
And then this is another Megaphobema velvetosoma. And that's what I was kind of talking about, how different like desert species or even the marxi type, how they have those kind of burrows, whereas this one was just like literally right underneath the tree.
Wow. Super cool.
And then that was another female Megaphobema that I helped remove. When I was down there, I kind of told some of the locals, like, hey, if you see a snake or a tarantula, let me know, because unfortunately they're sometimes they do end up killing them. So I'm like, if you could call me, whatever, I'm over here. I'll remove it for you. Just give me a holler.
That's a great photo, man. That's a fantastic photo of you with the spider.
Thanks.
Of avicularia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what species that is. I've gotten a number of different responses. I took some better shots on my actual camera. However, I was mugged shortly after this when I was running on the Amazon.
Really?
Yeah. I got kind of pistol whipped and everything got taken except for my passport.
At least they were kind enough to leave you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's in the Amazon.
Yeah. I got because I've worked there, I've been there before. I got kind of cocky in a sense where like I speak Spanish. I don't look. Oh well, I'm a brown dude. I don't necessarily look like a tourist. So I thought I would be fine and sticking to like the safer areas, but that happened. But again, that could happen kind of like anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still really want to go back and retake some of the photos.
Which country was that?
This was in Ecuador. This was in Cuyabeno National Park, which is in the Amazon. I found on each of these banana trees, I found at least one avicularia.
Oh wow.
And then that is the dwarf species that I found up in the Andes. The one that nobody knew really kind of existed. I was on that amphibian Kitchard project, so nowhere acknowledges nobody who could really identify it. I took photos, I sent it down, I kind of looked through some kind of paperwork, and there was no mention of tarantulas being up there.
That's crazy, man. I hope something comes out of that. I'd love to know more.
Yeah, this was what, back in like 2014.
Oh wow. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think the funding's there, and that's how basically small they were.
Wow. You'd never even think it was a tarantula. You'd think it's some kind of true spider.
Yeah, it almost looks like a trapdoor with the
Yeah.
body's shaped.
Funny thing is, we found some trapdoors that were as large as that one.
Really?
And that's a female with an egg sac, obviously.
Wow. Very cool. Now the photo is a little blurry. Here, go back, Smitty, real quick.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad.
I was gonna say the abdomen, is that a bald spot or is that a different coloration to the abdomen hair?
Nope, it's a different coloration of the abdomen hair.
Wow. It's got like for those listening on their commute to work, it's a rich velvety black spider with almost like a copper color tough
a hair
fur.
piece like Trump has.
Yeah, it's like a Trump copper colored toupee. Very cool.
Yeah, and they were just found under because we were looking for Gastrotheca species, which are marsupial frogs. We were doing a study on them because one species seemed to be resistant to chytrid and the not. So we were looking at the peptides and try to figure out why. But they were found right underneath sometimes the same rocks or the same pieces of grass, patches of grass up over there.
And were they webbing a lot? It doesn't look like there's a whole lot.
There weren't even any like telltale signs of them even being there.
Wow. Do you think the spiders predate on the frogs?
The frogs are basically almost the same size as them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there were like a plethora of other insects that I'm sure they shared like the similar prey items, but I can't. Maybe young frogs, but yeah, they were pretty small.
Very cool, man.
No kind of aggression defensive whatsoever, so that was pretty nice.
So I'm confused. You were just taking pictures and these dudes just rolled up on you and were like, hey, give us your
So I was flipping over a rock and I just got hit over like on the backside of my head with like a gun. And it was just more like, okay, give me everything you have. Give me your backpack, give me that. And so I really just wanted to say, I'm like, take everything, but could I have the memory cards? I did not. As much as I also want to say I want to be a tough guy, be like, oh, hey, no, I fought back. I absolutely did not. I just,
you're by yourself?
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Yeah. A lot of my friends are not like into like herping or looking for arachnids. So I tend to go on this solo travels.
It's tough, man. It's very tough when you're by yourself.
Yeah. But it's a life learning experience. It's pretty cool. Just being like, especially if you're by yourself, you're able to create your own kind of itinerary going over. The nice part was I was living in like local villages and everything, and just talking with them, saying like, oh hey, because I feel like some of the best things you could do is talk to locals, see what they see, or like try to look for what they look like, because sometimes they could point you to the right direction to like an area where they find a certain species of snake or even a tarantula or something, and you would never know to check over there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. It goes a lot farther than just going to the local pub.
Yeah, I mean, I've also ended up at local pubs. Like that's where I found a lot of the Vicularia. Like in the Amazon, there was in right outside of Cuyabeno, there was this like little, very like rustic pub. And up over there, I was saying, I'm like, oh, I'm looking for tarantulas, snakes. And then the guy's like, oh, I see tarantulas all the time. I'm like, where? And he just points to the ceiling. And there's like 3 chilling up there. I'm just like, all right, well, do you find any closer to the ground that I could possibly?
Nice.
But yeah, befriending the locals is always like one of the first things I always try to do. Thankfully for social media, I try to connect with like either herpers or people in the transit community. This even podcast, your Snakes and Stogies Facebook group. I've gone on a herping trip recently to California. I'm about to go to Oregon this week.
Nice.
I met someone like through there, and that I'm going to be meeting up with and everything. So thank you guys for that too.
Glad we could help,
Cool,
man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
When you were down there, what dart frogs? I mean, are you into dart frogs? If you're doing the kitchen stuff, what dart frogs were you finding? What snakes were you finding most of?
So I'm going to try to think, because this was like a little while ago. I kind of stopped traveling post or like right before COVID. But I didn't find any dart frogs in my most recent trip. I did find some dart frogs when I was in Hawaii. Forgetting on the species name, but
a radis, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's
green and blacks.
Yeah,
that's a radis.
That's there, as well as some like blind earth snakes. But down in Ecuador, we found, out in Peru, we found, in the Amazon level, we found. Trying to think back, we found some coral snake species. I know those are your favorite, but we found some false corals, and then I'll have to go through my pictures again, just because it's been a minute since we were over there, and we were mainly focusing on frogs for the most part. So we were doing the transects we were doing were just shining on leaves for the most part, and we didn't see too many snakes that way. We did see we didn't, when we were in Peru, we didn't come other than coral snake, we didn't come across any more venomous snakes. At least that's what I was really big into when I was younger. I'm like, venomous snakes, great. I mean, like, those are like what I want to see. We did catch a few rainbow boas.
Cool. That's cool. That's very cool.
Got nailed by one, and that was like, that was pretty fun, because we had some students from another school come down. I guess they were doing their summer trip like abroad, and we were funded by Disney, so we had to call ourselves Disney scientists, and they were coming just to like do this other course and just like watch us and everything. And I remember like this one girl's reaction to me getting nailed. Like, the bite wasn't bad, it was just very bloody. And it's completely fine. It's okay, as like blood's going down my hand. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know what it's about, dude. Epicrates, man. It doesn't hurt. It just bleeds.
Yeah, and which I'm completely fine. Like one of my coworkers at the time, he got bit by a I'm trying to think of the text. Well, he got bit by a red-tailed boa.
Okay.
And that wasn't as painless.
Yeah.
What he saw.
From what seems like boas, like the true boas, man. When they go for it, they don't do it lightly. It's always like full force.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, dude. I would get bit by Epicrates way before I get bit by any red tail.
But it was pretty interesting to see them in there, like how we were trying to look for these animals in situ. Well, I guess we did find them in situ, but in their more natural habitat. But we found them in the outhouse. We found them
Nice.
in these other places. So it's just like, all right, this is great. This is a make for a great photo. But like finding them somewhere, like finding them like in trees or like when you're out walking where you think they should be. We generally didn't have much luck doing that.
So then what other frog species did you find for the study?
So that study was mainly looking at two species, Gastroteka nebulonestis and Gastroteka excubator. I believe it was nebulonestis. Don't quote me on this again because this has been like a number of years. Those were up in the cloud forests in Peru. Unfortunately, due to climate change and the onset of chytrid moving through there, it wiped out a plethora of other species. Hypsiboa gladiator was one, too, that was commonly found there, which was not so much other Hypsiboa species, Pristomantis, things like that. But yeah, so we were taking like kind of skin swabs of them, seeing why one is more resistant than the other. Is it something like with the peptides on their back? And yeah, it was pretty. It was honestly like a lot harder than I thought. Just like just trying to locate those species, and also hearing back calls from, because we did playback calls as well to try to find them. Hearing what the professor had collected even a year previously compared to what it was now, or what it was back then, it was pretty eye-opening to see how quieter it was. And that's one thing you never really kind of want to hear when you're in the tropics. You never want to hear it get quieter. And yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty shocking, and I kind of want to like go back even now and try to see like, oh, is it even worse at that point?
Yeah, I know the feeling.
One thing I always do wonder when guys like yourself or even Nipper, anyone in our circle that goes abroad on a regular basis, like what's kind of vaccinations do you typically have to get before you leave for that?
So I generally take whatever's kind of recommended. Like because I used to work in China for a little bit, so they like in some areas they were like take the yellow fever, similar to what in South America, like antimaria. There's one tablet. I'm blanking on if it was the yellow fever anti-malaria one. That one, there's multiple options. You can get vaccines. Unfortunately, I was too late to get the vaccine, so they just gave me the pills. Those give me vivid nightmares, almost like. I know it's pretty commonly thought, but I was like, I need to have something at least. But yeah, it's usually just the anti-malaria pills or in yellow fever. Yeah, you could get. I'm sure you could get like more in-depth ones, but then it just comes down to, does your local pharmacy carry those vaccines? But yeah, I've traveled to India, China, South America, and I haven't, outside of those basic ones, I haven't really had much.
And was that what the process was? Was just going to your pharmacy and being like, I need the vaccination for X, Y, and Z?
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. You go there, you say like, hey, I'm traveling to this country. This is what they recommend. Sometimes they'll give you a little vaccination booklet or a little thing that you could kind of say like, oh, I have these vaccines in case like when you're traveling and someone asks for proof or whatever. It's generally pretty straightforward. Always check like a month or like depending on how far you planned ahead. If you're planning a couple months in advance, check and see what the wait time is. I know sometimes it takes them a while to get certain vaccines in, or if you want an alternative, do you want pills instead of a vaccine? That's one thing to look into too.
Yeah, I can't imagine they keep a lot of those sort of on hand, because how often are they realistically giving those out to people?
Yeah. The major cities generally always have a good amount, but when my undergrad was in Central Illinois, did not have much.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta touch on India a little bit.
You gotta.
Where did your parents come from as far as India? And then when you went to India, where did you go?
Yeah, so my parents are from Gujarat. That's from
Okay.
that's more on the north side. It's where famously the Gir Forest is, which is the last remaining stronghold for like Asiatic lions. They're from my mom's from a smaller village. My dad's from the city, so my mom was the one running into all these venomous snakes and tarantulas, and that's what kind of made her terrified, especially because her family owned like a farm from there.
Super cool, man.
Yeah, dude, I've said it once, I've said it a million times. India and China are at the top of my list.
Yeah.
I feel like India is so overlooked in terms of herpetofauna and just so much cool stuff. Like I mean, you get to see all the boiga that you don't get to see in the States or even in Europe for that matter. And then you also get to see ornamentals in the wild and crocodiles like Temistoma and all, like just
everything.
A ton of cool stuff.
Spiders, scorpions, oligodon.
Yeah.
Dude, and the largest scorpion in the world and the most toxic scorpion in the world in the same habitat.
It's pretty great, especially because sometimes in India you don't even have to leave a city to go herping.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to be blanking on the scientific names, of course, when I come on a show. I blank. But cobras are pretty like when my dad's from in India, and like in the city. Sure, you ask locals, they're like, "Oh, we never seen it. Oh, we never see them." But you go out with a little flashlight during the night, flip over some bricks, go in a house, you'll find them. Same thing with like rat snakes, you can find them. Tarantulas, you can find them. Mm-hmm. It's all pretty right there. You just have to poke around. I do have a friend down. I forgot what state in India, but we went to undergrad together, and he studies herps too, and he gives herpetofauna tours over there. Great guy. So
we got to get him on air.
Yeah, definitely. He's really chill, and he's like from there too. Like, whereas if I go to India, I get gypped all the time. Like they know I'm not like really Indian at all, just because I do speak with an accent whenever I speak Gujarati or Hindi. But with him, he was born and raised there too, so like he's able to get around. But yeah, I did try to do herping in China. I was denied for one reason or another, just because I didn't get to travel around a lot in the city I was in, but I was just told I needed permits to go inside, and kind of like a reserve area. I don't know if that was factual or not, but I just didn't want to push it just because.
Yeah, we'll let you in. You got to give us $20.
Yeah,
I'm a government official. You gotta grease the wheels a little bit, buddy.
Yeah. No, I give you the permit. I'll give you the permit. Don't worry.
Yeah, but with India, if it was just more, if the plane tickets weren't like $2,000,
yeah,
like that's why I go to South America a lot. Hell, even my trip to Ecuador, my plane ride from Chicago when I was living there down to Ecuador was cheaper than my flight to California.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah,
that's gnarly, man.
When you fly into India, I mean, how many major airports are there?
So usually we fly into Delhi or Bombay, and you either take, depending on if you want to sit through an entire train ride there, or you take a smaller plane into where like my family lives in Gujarat. But it's generally you stop from here. We usually stop in London and then go into Bombay or Delhi, and then go into Gujarat from there.
It's a hell of an adventure, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's been so many times I I wanted to learn Hindi just to mess with Raj, like not tell him I was learning the language. And then when he's having a conversation with like his parents or like one of his buddies or something, I can just laugh and like respond. Because sometimes he would like speak, I call it Hinglish. It'd be like this weird, he'd be diving in and out of like Hindi and English, and it like having straight up English conversations, and then they'd be diving into Hindi and back into English. It was bizarre. But
hey, well, I could teach you some too if you want to mess with them.
I mean, I looked into it. It's compared to some other languages, it doesn't seem like it's terribly hard to learn. Like it's not like a super complex language, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's like too bad. But when you do travel to India, the one thing you have to be aware of is North India. Even though Hindi is a national language, North India is only really the one that speaks it for the most part. States in South India, you'd have better luck speaking English than Hindi.
Really?
And that each state has their own language too.
Yeah, that's what Raj was telling me. Is like there's like a ton of dialects and stuff even within.
Yeah, it's
like a single area.
It gets pretty tricky, especially like if you're trying to do everything. Whereas I try to do things on a budget, and they view people in America as being very wealthy, so they try to get everything, trying to milk you for everything. At the same time,
sure.
There were certain times where, like, when we'd go to India, my mom would be like, "You don't talk at all. Just don't even open your mouth."
Don't speak.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thankfully, with the onset of like social media, which I wish was more prevalent back then, there's a lot of great herpers in India that you connect to, and they're like more than willing to help you guys out.
Dude, some of my favorite photographers on Instagram, like wildlife photographers, are in India, and it's just like the stuff that they're putting out is just incredible.
Yeah. And then like even like tarantulas, because like a lot of I don't know of really many people in India, but like they're generally the bycatch from when herping and everything. It's like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's a new species, or pretty sure like it's just pretty wild over there, especially down in South India when you get into like more tropical areas that are more diverse. You never know what you could find. I know when I was asking photos around, this guy found a Poecilotheria regalis in his house.
Wow.
Just chilling in his house. I'm like, all right, free ranging pets, I guess. But
dude, did you imagine that just like walking across your toaster? You know? That's wild.
Yeah, dude, there's so much cool stuff. See Conicus. Like even after our little INAT adventure we had a couple weeks ago looking at Conicus, like now I want to see him in the wild.
Dude, Swammerdami, man.
Yeah, that'll be.
Dude, I'd go to India just for Swammerdami. Just like scorpion the length of my forearm, like put it on me, take the wanker shot, you know. I'm there.
You said you've kept a number of scorpions, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever kept any Hadentata?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's this like undescribed species that came from, I think they call a Hadentata species Hyderabad. They're beautiful, really. If I were to get back into scorpions, I'd definitely get a bunch of that genus. The same thing with the Stalkers or Lyris species.
Yeah.
You should get into Jordansis.
I had it.
Yeah, I love the
that's my favorite. That's probably my favorite scorpion, man.
Yeah, and they're just becoming, I don't know if they're just becoming more available or if someone recently had a clutch though, but like
there haven't been any legitimately exported from Jordan or Lebanon to the United States like ever. And I know that there were some that were legit taken from Jordan to Germany and the Netherlands, and then a couple of Swedish dudes, I think they bred them. So you'll see captive bred slings that were imported from Europe floating around like last year, year before, probably this year too. And they're reasonably priced. I think they're like $250 for a sling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's this other phenotype where they're like a chocolate brown too. And it's pretty nice.
Yeah. My buddy I was telling you about earlier, he has the most recent Lyris paper. He's going to give it to me. So when I get it, I'll definitely send it your way.
Yeah.
It's a full breakdown, like everything from like hairs on the pectoral, like, you know, the I don't even know what I guess they're pores within the book lungs, like counting the pores to tell the difference. Crazy shit.
Yeah, that's one thing that like I'm still trying to get used to more with scorpions is that, for example, with the Parabuthus genus, I'm fairly confident at telling the sex of some of them just because
Sure.
you have to count the teeth on their. I forgot the name of the part, but you basically count the teeth. Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, but that's not always consistent with across all species or across all genera. So that's one thing I need to get better with. But Parabuthus is a great genus too. Something about scorpions that could spray venom.
I know, dude. I had multiple species of Transvalicus for years, and I tried to get them to quote unquote spit or spray, and the most I ever got was I had a really diesel female Transvalicus that would flex her telson and droplets would just drop out of the stinger of venom. But it never sprayed, you know. Same thing with Lyosoma. You know, I had Lyosoma for many years, and there was never any spray or anything. So
yeah, like same thing. Like I've had like a number of individuals, and I've never been able to get them to spray. But someone on Arachna boards said like, "Oh, I just got one in, and it sprayed." And I'm like, "All right, well, that's it's pretty." They're just pretty great. Like just a quick question for you: how are you heating, or like what kind of like, or what kind of conditions were you keeping them in?
So I kept everything at room temperature.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I kept all. I would say all my scorpions except for like emperors, because I had emperor scorpions from Sierra Leone that were bigger than any heterometrus you've ever seen. They were 8-inch long emperors. They were legitimately exported out of Sierra Leone and then captive bred. So mine were F1. I had F1 parents, and then I had F2 babies that, like an idiot, I wound up just giving them away to friends. I was like, here, you get a giant scorpion. You get a giant scorpion. And those I kept on a very, very low watt, like 20 watt, little 20 watt halogen lamp on top of the tank. And then Hedurus, Arizona, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
I had was it Hedurus and Hedurus Spinifex or Spinax?
Yeah,
probably. Can't remember the black colored ones. I had both of those in 10 gallons with the same thing, like a little 25 watt halogen light. But dude, all of my Middle Eastern stuff, all my North African stuff, all my sub-Saharan stuff, that was all just room temperature, just 72, 71, something like that. But going back to that Liaris paper, which I thought was crazy. So the last segment of the tail before the telson hinge, there's a series of small like saw blade teeth on the inside of the tail. If you look at something like Androctonus crassicauda or Androctonus bicolor, you could see it with the naked eye. There's like these saw blade teeth on the inside of the tail. Well, on the Liaris, they figured out that if you look at it with a black light under a macro lens, you can see every single little tooth that you can't normally see with just a normal macro lens. And I guess depending on the number of teeth in male and female differentiates the different species.
That's really cool.
So like what my buddy was telling me is they basically have a DSLR with a macro lens. They put the scorpion, like in the field, they put the scorpion in a cup. They take a quick shot with a macro under the black light, and on the DSLR screen, they can count the teeth and go, okay, that's this species, and it's a boy.
Damn,
it's crazy. So
very wild.
Yeah, very wild. But yeah, I just got that one Deathstalker, and I'm hoping it's the Sinai species, because if it does grow more, it's going to be gorgeous. But I do miss the Parabuthus, man. I do. Super cool.
If you want to, like, I know one of my friends, he owns a shop and everything, and I think he has like a decent amount of different Lyra species of Parabuthus that could pique your interest. I know I've been trying to avoid going on site and everything just because I'm already like, I'm like, you know what, I want to I want to wait for the right species to come along.
Yeah.
As I know, it's like, I don't know. Someone mentioned the equivalency. It's like, oh, taking care of like 20 tarantulas is like the equivalency of taking care of one snake, and it's like that much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just like, okay, well, then I'm going to justify it to myself. I'm like, well, if I were to instead of getting one snake, I should get 20 of these and some more of these.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. The one species that I had a lot of fun with was Scorpio mari and Scorpio mari palmatus.
I've heard
Have
of
you seen
those.
them? Dude, they have they're just a sandy yellow color, but their pincers are like little boxing gloves. And they're totally harmless species, less than a bee sting, but they're so mean and so defensive, and they like box with their claws. It's absolutely adorable. So if you come across Scorpio mari or Scorpio mari palmatus, dude, I'll recommend them to anybody as a pet scorpion just because they're so what's the word I'm looking for? Animated. It's like a cartoon scorpion. And they're constantly out. So if your buddy has a good selection, I would recommend dabbling in that because they're fun.
Definitely keep an eye out for them.
Yeah.
Have you thought about getting into communal species or parthenogenic species?
I have, and I know that there's a bunch of people online that kept androgynous bicolor communally, and I actually thought about doing that. The problem is you need to feather the sex ratio, and you really shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 males in there. But what seems to happen is one female will consume most of the prey. She'll get bigger, and then all of a sudden you'll be missing another female. And I kind of get weary of that. But I've seen guys that had like back on like arachnoboards back in the day, and like scorpion files, they would have a 20-gallon long fish tank with like 20 bicolor in there. And like that's too much for me, man. I would be too much anxiety, you know what I mean? That much going on. I used to keep heterogeneous troglodytes and heterogeneous pauciodens, the flat rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept, because they're so easy to tell the difference between males and females because of how long the tail is in the males. I kept, 2 or 3 girls with 1 boy, but I get anxiety. Like, are they all eating right? Are they all pooping right? Like, it's just easier for me to just keep individual delis, and even if it's not as aesthetically pleasing, but it has crossed my mind to do more cohab stuff.
Dude, the communal species are some of my favorites. Like all the centroides and stuff. I really enjoyed keeping those in groups.
Usually Titius. There's some Titius species that are parthenogenic. So you'll just end up with a horde of them. The only downside is as beautiful as they are, especially because I'm in love with bark scorpions too. I like bark scorpions and arid species. Those two are like my favorite. Yeah. But the only thing is like they are medically significant and they do blend really quite well. And especially like similar to what you were saying, Phil, if you don't keep track of them, you will never know how much you have in like one enclosure. And especially like if they're parthenogenic, like if they're reproducing that way, it's kind of hard to keep track. Like I know, like I just had one bin that would keep on, and I have friends that are the same thing. Like they have one bin, they just keep it going, and like let the population kind of check itself. They'll like dump pinheads inside there, but even then, it's just like, it's just like that ever kind of like creeping like feeling that like, are they all inside there? Is one going to be out, or is like one young one like going to get out somehow, or like
was it on the lid and I didn't know, and I put the lid down on my table and now it's loose, and ugh, Steve. I will say this:
thank God for black lights.
Yeah, right. What were we gonna say?
Oh, and then there's even like because on topic it was kind of brought up communal species for tarantulas. There's 2. I'm very hesitant to say true communal because from what I've always been like taught in school as well as talking to people is that behaviors at the way that animals act in captivity is not always the same how they act out in the wild, obviously. So what they do in captivity might not be the same thing they do in the wild.
Right.
But there's two species that are more so thought to be more like pretty much communal the hobby, and that is Monocentropus balfouri, the Scotch Island blue baboon, and what I was able to see in the wild, luckily, Pamphobedius species Arania pollito, which is the chicken spider. They both are gorgeous, and if the Arania pollito went down in price from $350 to something cheaper,
Manageable. Yeah.
because they're both on like different spectrums. So it's like the Monocentropus is like this nice. I'm sure you guys have seen photos. They're nice, tan and blue coloration.
And the Balfouri are the ones that the guys on Instagram have like the 500-gallon tank, and there's like 500 of them. Yeah, dude, they're gorgeous, man.
Yeah, and then the chicken spider is they're a large black, large black tarantula. So like it's like you get the size with them, for the most part. There hasn't been too many communals lately, just because everyone's worried about like, oh, am I feeding them properly? Are they going to eat each other? But like I've seen photos of people over in Europe that had multiple generations together. They may not be as communal as Monocentropus balfouri, but they are pretty communal, and that would be pretty cool. You know, it was always kind of my like dream to have like some communal scorpion setup, have some communal tarantula setup, and as well as like I'm really big into Thamnophis. Just have communals with them too, and just like maximize space.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Thamnophis is awesome.
I feel like Pulchra have held their price forever.
Fun fact,
because Pulchra slings are $70 still right now.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
because they're the best pet spider, man.
There was this whole thing where we didn't know if we had the true Pulchra in the hobby. There was another species called Kirogai. I'm not 100% sure on the actual differences other than the location on them, but I guess there was talks where there was like Pulchra was never truly imported before. It was just like many other tarantulas, they were illegally brought in, and we don't have the proper locale information for them. So some people
Brazil's a big place.
So some of them, I'm not sure what they ended up deciding, because now you don't really see any label as Kurogai anymore. So it's just like, I don't know what they figured out. I feel like every single time I hop out of the hobby for like half a year or a year, so many things have changed, and it's just like I need to just kind of like sit down and catch up.
Yeah. Well, it's like you have spiders that were brought in as the wrong name by importers.
Yep.
And then you have spiders that were smuggled in by just Joe Schmo. And now Joe Schmo breeds his with the one he bought from the importer or whatever. And now it's like, okay, well, does it really matter at that point? But at the same time, you still want to know.
Yeah.
And are they doing DNA work on arachnids?
I think now they're focusing on, I think it's more so on whenever funding comes in, because there's not a ton of arachnologists, and when there are, they focus on different groups. Unfortunately for me, Pamphobedius and Estes are getting the back burner. But other species like Valker's doing great work. I know Sherwood's out there too. There's others that I'm blanking again. That I normally do know, but on a podcast, of course, I forget everything. But yeah, and it comes down to the one thing that I kind of wish that was more prevalent in the hobby, is that a lot of people who are the spiders, either legally or illegally, they keep the locality information to themselves, which makes, for some more of the sensitive species, harder to breed. So essentially, they're the ones kind of controlling the market with that, because they're not telling people like, oh, this is how you necessarily breed them, or you need to simulate a flooding, then you need dry period for this amount of time, this amount of temperature. A lot of people don't realize, especially with the higher elevation species, or even some of the tropical species, like they need to set amount of conditions, which is surprising to people, because some people are like, they're just spiders. You should be able to drop right away. But getting them to mate and getting them to drop are two completely different things.
Sure. In your experience, just going back to communal stuff, are you of the mindset of separate the slings to the best of your ability, or do you keep the slings together, let them eat each other, and the strongest survive?
Let Darwin work his magic.
Yeah.
So the only slings I've kept communally outside of I will say this: like when it comes to like true spiders like Latrodectus or Luxalis, whenever I did end up with the exact, it was more so I'm like, you know what, these things are too small. Let them come there. I haven't produced an exact for a tarantula. However, whenever I did get, like, one of my friends produced Monocenthropus, he would ship them together, and they've always kind of been like that. And even when feeding, they were together up until a certain size and everything. Didn't really have any adverse effects from that. I did notice the ones kept in communal. This is just my experience. Communally, they ate better and they grew faster than the ones that were kept separately. I'm not sure if that's like if other people have lost that, but I just thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, like communal. What is it? The competition enticement.
Yeah, or it's like they would be feeding on the same prey item together.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'll try to send you a video if I could find it. But sometimes even when they're kept with the female for a certain amount of time, the female will like kill a prey item, drop it, and I'll let the young feed on them.
Oh wow!
And there are times that where she just want to eat it herself. And there was a video where she like kicked a young one off, just want to consume it. So I'm just like, yeah. Well, I guess they're more like people than we thought.
Yeah. That's cool, man. It's like scorpions, mom feeding the babies.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
And then with centipedes, they do their own crazy thing where some species, they just eat the female.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. Rose hair slings right now are $70.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember back in, probably going to age myself a little bit, but like back in like the mid 2000s when I was a kid, when I was like walking in the pet shop, you could find a rose hair wild caught for like $10-15 sometimes.
Yeah.
Around, which I'm glad that's not the case anymore, because they were being collected unethically in the sense, even though it was legal, just picking up any kind of like largish kind of like adult you could find is probably not very good for their population.
Yeah, I think we wholesaled them back in the day for like $3.50.
Oh well, yeah, wow,
yeah, like $3.50, something like that.
And of course, back then nobody really wanted them because they were everywhere.
Well, yeah, I was to say everybody wanted them because they were inexpensive and, for lack of a better word, friendly. And they were pawned off as the easy pet, and people kept them totally wrong. I mean, crap, I kept them totally wrong. You put them on sand because it's like, oh, it's a tarantula, lives on sand. It's like, well, no, that's not good.
Yeah, there was people back in the day that, so like I used to be on boards ever since like 2008, 2009, and even going towards some of the old threads, people used to keep tarantulas of vermiculite, straight vermiculite. Yeah, it's amazing to see how much we've progressed as a hobby.
Sure.
So similar with reptiles and everything, it's like we're learning more about them, and yeah, I mean, like tarantulas could be like probably a bit slower hobby wise to catch on or like adopt new techniques and stuff, because again, some people are the same mindset, it's a spider, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I know there's like a lot of like now new like products coming out, like you could buy tarantula specific substrate mixes and stuff like this, although I just use topsoil for the most part. I'm cheap. But yeah,
well, it is good to see, when the three of us were younger, you would be hard pressed to find an invert dealer at a show, and if it was a wholesaler that was selling imports, or it was don't want to use the dirty word flipper, but someone who bought wild caught animals from a wholesaler and just had a smattering of this and that. Whereas now, even if you go to a local show or some of the bigger shows, there's a legit
Whole
invert.
tables.
Yeah, multiple vendors, multiple tables with just inverts and invert decor, invert accessories. So I think it's great. I think we've grown a lot in that bug world.
Yeah, definitely. I remember. So I used to grow up going. Well, not grow up going to it, but like I used to go to an RBC Tinley, like quite a bit. And every year I would go. It's like there would be like another table for like with tarantulas or like inverts in general. So that was really kind of cool. And now we're learning better practices. Like back in the day, quarantining wild caught tarantulas or tarantulas in general. I know with captive, like captive raised ones. It's not really necessary to necessarily do that. But with wild caught ones, for example, it's generally good practice to keep them away from your main collection, like for a couple molts at least, just because you never know. It's like, was there a forward flight? Like, um, are there nematodes or something like associated with that? But now we're learning more, like more and more about that. I see the hobby grow, seeing people more, I don't know, put more effort into something that they thought was like a low effort animal. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, well put. Well put.
There's a guy with that heterothele, that Tanzanian chestnut, that dwarf species I like so much. There's one morph market right now. If he had a couple, they're only like $35. If he had a couple more, I'd get a little group of them.
You should check out classifieds on Arachnoboard.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've been on AB, man. I used to hang out on there a lot.
Do you remember a user named Poke54? He was just like,
yes.
He was out in Florida somewhere. I don't know where he is. It's like I never knew it was by his real name, but like I'm pretty sure he was the face of Arachnoboard for a while. This really like grouchy old dude who just go off on people all the time. Just like whenever they would ask us a simple question, he just go off on them. He's like, common sense this, but that's what like
we had a few of those guys by me.
It's been a long time since I've been on there.
Yeah, I remember that king snake fauna and everything, and now that's just like evolved into morph market for the most part.
Yeah Facebook closed groups. Yeah,
I used to moderate a page called the trans community for a while, and now it's like it's wild just to see like how many people are on there now. We're just like asking questions about like we're just being interested in tarantulas in general.
It's good, man. It's good.
Well, it's like the two hobbies, herps and inverts, have always kind of been
hand in hand,
tied together to some degree, and
even more so now with isopods and springtails and cleaning crew. You see more people getting into millipedes as part of their bioactivity, or even centipedes as part of their bioactivity. African feathertail centipedes to aerate and loom the soil to let isopods do their thing better, or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. And it's like, even with the like I was into isopods for a short amount of time, and then it was just like and that kind of moved on. But like it's pretty wild to see, like, I mean, again, not throwing shade, just like some of the costumes, just like it's like, all right, well, I'm putting a lot into hoping, because like I don't know if there's a proper way, but like if you're getting a mixed bag, it's like, how do you sex them? Can you sex them? Or if I'm spending this much like amount, or just like if you're one of the first people's similar to like some tarantulas, like when they first enter into the hobby, we don't necessarily know how to keep them 100% well. We just kind of, what I always used to do was be like, hey, go on Google Maps. I'm not Maps. Go on Google, see the area that they're from generally, and try to mimic that.
Yeah, replicate. And it was always crazy to me is that, just going to find isopods out of morbid curiosity of a cleanup crew, I can spend $40 on a Middle Eastern scorpion that's in its 4th or 5th molt, or I can spend $40 on one dairy cow, rubber ducky, whatever it is, isopod. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah. And then there was this whole learning curve before with cleanup crews and arachnids and centipedes, for example, some species like the Porcellio genus, I believe, they're more protein hungry than others. It's like I've seen photos of them taking the antennae off of centipedes or
Wow.
just look bites out of freshly molted tarantulas. So it's like things that you have to be more like cognizant of, and it's not as easy as throwing in isopods and or something like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I only felt comfortable using like dwarf white isopods just because anything else I'm like, all right, I don't want you to take a chunk out of like my tarantula, but at the same time with some smaller slings, if I was going for uh if I just got a bunch of slings from like a friend, for example, I would put in some isopods in there and they would hunt them, they would eat them, and that would be like any kind of food thing.
Yeah.
Oh, freaking Stromatopelma, $29.
Yeah. I remember back when Laciodora, so like obviously like certain species have certain amount of um, eggs within them, like Laciodora parahybana could have like, I think I've seen upwards of 900.
Wow. Wow.
And there's other species like sorry to keep on going back to
No, it's cool, man. It's cool.
but I know my friend produced a sack and there was only like what 30.
Oh wow.
But again, it's like you could see the you could see kind of like the life strategies with them. Like the Laciodora one, they're itty bitty, they're very small, and whereas the Senestus, they're quite big. They're like already like right from the egg, they're like 3/4 of an inch.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just wonders. Like I've always thought that like especially when it comes to like those species that produce the big eggs, the big egg sacs. I mean the hobby is similar to like the wild at this point because you never know how many are going to survive. You never know which ones are going to be continue on being bred because I guess that's one thing that's kind of disheartening to see in the hobby. It's like not everyone has to breed, and that's completely fine. But there's some species that have straight up disappeared. Like we've thankfully, thanks to the efforts of Steve Nunn, he's an arachnologist out in Australia, we were able to get a couple imports from legal Australia. The Stogies species that's probably been changed genus, but there was a number of them. Species 10, species Eunice. Um, there was this one PQ something, and we've already lost a couple of them just because people were like, "Oh, we're not going to breed these. These are common at this point in time. They're not going anywhere, and they're gone now." And it's like, what are the chances Australia is going to let it import? So like, I mean, like Steve Nunn probably had to break his back trying to get that sent over to the United States, and how anyone's going to ever want to do the amount of work that he did again. So it's pretty wild to think about like how like I don't know, it just brings into perspective. It's like you should try, especially with like more uncommon species, just try to find like mates for some of your spiders. I know there's a lot of Facebook pages for that, groups for that. I have a friend that created one called Spinder. You could go on, just list.
That's pretty awesome.
That's good.
And again, it's not as easy as like as people think putting like a male and female together. It's like
definitely not like most snakes.
Yeah, it's like some of them again, it's like people have tried and tried like doing so and they still haven't been able to get them to drop. There's a reason why we're keeping a lot of the breeders out in Europe in business with the larger tropical New World species like Senescus and Pamphobetes because we could never get them down. And I hope that one day they share their secrets because I know, and it was hard. I even tried going out to where they're found and taking temperature data, and that still didn't help.
Wow. That's wild, man. Super cool.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at ornamental prices now, and like those are like the whole genus now is an ESA species, so now you can't even cross state lines with them, which is just so ironic because who the heck, like, I don't recall ever seeing wild caught ornamentals available
No.
anywhere.
I
So
wonder
it's like, why are we doing this? They were already established in the hobby long before that even became a thing. So it's like, why are we protecting them now? Like, it doesn't make sense.
have you guys heard of the I'm gonna butcher the genus Typhlocaena Celedonia.
No.
You should look up T. Celedonia. It's this really small arboreal trapdoor species.
Really?
Yeah, they're from Brazil, so they were brought in illegally, unfortunately. But they're super gorgeous. Unfortunately for me, I'm more a fan of a larger, um, like when it comes to arboreal, I like larger, like species. But there's really cool species, and when they first came in, they were like hundreds of dollars. But now I'm pretty sure they're fairly easy to breed. But for a while, I don't think you were able to cross state lines with them whatsoever.
Interesting.
But they're a really cool species. Bright pink, blue, green, and everything. But
Very cool.
It's just odd because, again, it's like that whole genus was well established in the hobby, minus like maybe 2 species, like Smith Eye and maybe one other one. So it's like, why did we all of a sudden decide to do this? But
I know with the Brazilian species, it was Brazil itself that tried to push U.S. Fish and Wildlife like to do something about that. But with the Poecilotheria, I'm not 100% sure. I can never always because there was some back and forth with some hobbyists that would talk to like a local, not local, or just like someone from Fish and Wildlife to go back and forth to understand what they're thinking. I don't know how well that panned out, or if they ever gave a reasoning. But yeah, with the Poecilotheria, I know when they stopped allowing for certain species to be crossed over state line, I got kind of worried. I'm like, are these going to disappear from the hobby? Fortunately, as much as people love some spiders, sometimes if there's no monetary value behind it,
Yeah.
I'm going to want to do that. I'm not. Are there any reptiles that are like that too? They can't be shipped across state lines.
Yeah, tons of them.
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So, but sorry, that's your word. That can't be sold across state lines, but could be gifted.
Yeah, like Jamaican bows.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's not that many, and most of them are either worldly, CITES classified as one thing or another, or they're on the they're on the endangered species list in the United States, where it needs a endangered species interstate commerce permit or something.
Okay.
So yeah, something asinine like that. Like Hamiltoni, I think, right, Justin?
Which one?
Hamiltoni, the Indian spotted
turtles.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
And I know galops are the same way. I think you need a $100 one-time permit to allow a galop to cross state lines, something to that extent. Which is all nonsense. It's just tax man.
Yeah.
But I totally get what you're saying about unique species that are maybe too niche that nobody wants to buy them, or only certain people want them and therefore they don't want to pay for them. Like I bred Babicarus gigas, the big sun devil scorpions. Dude, nobody wanted them. And like I paid like $50 a piece, and I had like 20 good going babies on like their third molt, and nobody wanted them, so I just gave them away to friends.
Now you could hardly find them. I remember when I was, because like back when I felt comfortable keeping scorpions. I mean, like after I felt comfortable, because like before when I was living, tarantulas were one thing because I know they're not like they're not life threatening,
right?
But when it comes to like scorpions and everything, I wanted just to be 100% sure. But just like I was looking for very curious, like I believe it was Jacksoni.
Yeah, Jacksoni.
And Gigas, and I couldn't find them at all.
Yeah.
And like a Cuban species, I believe.
Rhophalurus junceus.
Yeah. That one, I couldn't find that either at all.
Well,
And
now I'm pretty sure Rhophalurus is no longer a thing. I think they split that genus. It's still, I think it's still Junkius or Juncius, but the actual that like Cuban devil genera, I don't think is a thing anymore. But who knows?
I need to do a deep dive on that
Yeah,
again.
I actually have a crazy story about Rhophalurus Junkius. Was when it back in, say, oh god, this was like 2007, I think. I had a coworker who did, we worked import export and wholesaler, and he was like, dude, I think I got a lead on some. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, I know we're in Miami, but like nothing comes out of Cuba, you know? And he's like, no, it's a Swedish guy, or maybe he's Finland. I can't remember. He's like, yeah, it's a Swedish guy. He bred with them that were smuggled out of like Havana airport. And then he had 12 babies and he sold all 12 to some guy in Virginia. And the guy in Virginia was going to sell me and my friend 2 pair.
Nice.
So me and my buddy had collectively, we had 4 of the 12, and all 4 of them died like in 3 months. We tried to keep them as best we knew how, thinking about, you know, a tropical Cuban species, lowland forest Cuban species. They died really well. And then you didn't see them for a while, and then somebody just started posting them again. So I don't know if they're captive bred from Europe or if somebody smuggled them in, because we've been doing all the Cuban tourist stuff as of lately, but they're here.
Damn, I should look into that. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the one downfall for me, and this is something that's advancing with reptiles, like how we're able to test for certain diseases, um, stuff. There's not really any way to do so with arachnids.
Yeah.
So it's just always kind of a guess. It's like, do you know? And I guess that's one thing that always been in the back of my mind. It's like sometimes when I've had like 5 tarantulas die, I'll just be like, is there something going around? Is there like, because I'm keeping everything the same. I've had these for years now, and it's like, especially with they're like mature females and everything. It's like it makes you wonder, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing wrong? Especially with some of these species that could be very long lived.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as taking a swab and sending it back in. You just don't know if it's like something genetic or if it's just like they were too exhausted to molt and they couldn't follow through with it.
Yeah. Or sometimes I've seen ones, especially with some of the bigger, I mean, I want to say Grammostola type tarantulas, you know, golden chaco and some striped knee stuff, where they were dehydrated and the owner didn't know, because you can't tell. It's not like a snake where maybe they have a little wrinkle to their skin or they had a bad shed. It kind of flaked off in pieces, and the spider is dehydrated and it gets to the point where it can't molt, and it doesn't know, oh, I'm supposed to drink out of this water bowl with a man-made sponge in it, you know.
Yeah.
And had the keeper misted it more or something, increased the dew point, whatever it may be, it could have been prevented, but who knows?
Yeah, and then there's still some ways of keeping. Some people, I believe, still don't give them water bowls because they don't believe they need and everything.
Like on my spiders, I sprayed.
Yeah, and some I know with like scorpions, I was very scared. I was very kind of like I never dealt with I don't know the proper term. It's just like the rotting of their thing. But I was just like very, very cautious, like with that, especially with like the Lyris and everything. So with scorpions, with me, it was like a bit harder to tell, just because like I don't have as much experience with them. Like every so often, I just like spray, give a quick spray.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then especially with the arid species, even with tarantulas, you don't want to you don't want to like mist or moisten the substrate to the point where the humidity increases a lot, because then they go downhill. So I know, like on like during the arachnivore days, I don't know how active that forum still is, but people would post like, why did my OBT die or whatever, and it would just be like
wet sand.
Yeah.
Swamp.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably like that. It's probably due to that. And then, yeah, I mean, I know there's been some like failed bioactive setups too. I've tried my hand at bioactive with tarantulas. They just rip up everything.
Yeah, it's just a mess.
Everything's gonna get webbed over anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Or better yet, they put the soil in the web.
Yeah. It's either like, oh, like I took this because I was really anal about plants. So like if I ever got like a plant from the store, I would take a cutting, have that grow out, have it grow for a little bit to make sure there's no pesticides in the system and everything. And then I'll put it in and they would just uproot it or tear it up. I'm like, well, there you go. I know I like what you do with your enclosures, Phil. Like how you kind of make it like realistic.
I try to, man. It's tough sometimes, you know.
I found it's easier for some odd reason. It's like, I guess like some people, I mean, people wouldn't think it's easier to do that with reptiles than with like tarantulas or like scorpions things and everything. I try my hand at excavator clay at times, and even that still didn't hold up to a determined tarantula.
Yeah, and dude, I think tarantulas are so much harder to do decor than scorpions because most of the time the scorpion really isn't gonna knock stuff over unless they're burrowing and like the burrow shifts the substrate to make something shift or collapse or whatever. But like there's some dudes on Instagram that have the coolest like horror movie themed tarantula enclosures, and like they have like Jason and like Freddy Krueger and like Chucky, and like they're super cool, man. Like Dracula, and all I could think of is this guy must maintain these enclosures daily. Otherwise, it's just going to be webs and dirt.
Yeah,
I don't know how they do it, man. They have to manicure the enclosure daily because it's crazy.
that and like I remember seeing a post like, I felt bad for the guy. It's like I guess I forgot what species he had, but it fell on like I guess he had Lego pieces, like Lego figures. The tarantula fell and ruptured its abdomen,
Oh,
like on one of those. So I'm just like, all right. I'm like, I'm not even gonna include like sticks or anything in mine. I'm just like, I'll put some moss in. I'll keep it like bare minimum and everything. And yeah, I mean, like that's what worked for best for me too. Just like bare minimum, springtails, dwarf white eye.
You use cork bark at all?
Yeah. I definitely, especially when they would get bigger, and not so much when they're smaller, just because the species I kept were very fast growing. Like you could get Pamphobedius up to like 4 inches within a year.
Oh wow!
4 more inches, depending on the species. So when they're small, I would go to like Michael's, and I would get the smallest size of a clay pot, and I would let that soak, make sure everything's out, and I would use like a Dremel, I believe you call it, and cut it in half and use that in the beginning. Then I would switch to cork bark as they would get bigger and the more permanent enclosure. I don't know why like I do this personally, but like I don't like using or like I wasn't like the fondest of using or reusing cork bark and like in a different clothes. Like if one tarantula passed away.
No, you can't.
Yeah. So so I always use new pieces regardless. But yeah, cork bark. Yeah, I would definitely. And with scorpions too, there's some species, especially bark scorpions, that require it to. But yeah,
I've actually been putting cork bark in desert stuff too, where you cover it with enough sand, the sand will kind of get like in the pores of the bark and it'll almost look like rock. It almost look like stone, but it still has that lightweight, that lightness to it. And then if it is an arid thing and I give it a spritz, the cork bark will hold the water droplets way better than the sand. And even if it's warm enough that the sand will dry, the cork might stay a little bit moist still, especially on the underneath. And I find it works great with a lot of arid species, and like even like the desert scorpions, I'll put a bottle cap in there, put a I don't even know, half of a bottle cap of water, but then I won't refill it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll fill the bottle cap up again.
Yeah, that's what I would do with like more mature species. I mean, more mature individuals, especially when they were larger. I would just keep a bottle cap or even this one, I forgot what you call them. They're from the Container Store. If you guys have ever been, it's like a great place for like,
Dude, it's the best.
yeah.
It's the best.
So I'll just like grab like there was these like they're like little makeup trays or whatever, really small, and I would just like fill that up and take it out. And I would just do that like once a week and just introduce it to them because I was really like worried about increasing the humidity too high.
Yeah.
And then I would also I would heat I did this really. There was probably a lot easier way, but I was also pretty lazy. But I made like a big box out of styrofoam and everything, and just to increase the temps because I forgot. Again, like this isn't necessary at all based on like how you kept them at room temperature. The person I got some from, he took like temperature data and everything, and then what I did was I kind of like taped using like aluminum foil or HVAC tape a heat pad to the side of the like on one of the walls of the styrofoam box I made, and I would keep it at like 90 degrees, and then I would like slowly drop the temperature over the day and everything, and it was really interesting to see the scorpions change their behavior, and in response to the heat, you can tell like if they were like hugging the sides more to kind of heat it up more, and then if it was like too warm, they'd be on the other side and just changing it back and forth. But yeah, the growth was pretty astounding. The difference, obviously, maybe not the best for longevity purposes.
Yeah.
But it was still pretty interesting just because I was also like really trying to get them out of the smaller stages as quickly as I can, just because I know during molting and everything that's generally, if I can't help them out at that size, I just want them to like grow through it as fast as possible, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually eager to see. This is my first, the Liaris I just got. This is my first scorpion. This is my first invert since building the legit desert room. So now, like, I didn't check the temps today. Today it was hot. But it's been maintaining an ambient of 82 every day, and then a night drop to 71 every night. So let me see what it's at right now. Govy is loading. Forgive me. Yeah, and I imagine the more close into summer we get, it's probably going to be a lot hotter. That sounds weird. So yeah, it hit 83.8 today, but last night it would drop to 75.2. So I'm getting at least about a 10-degree temp swing each night.
Yeah, that's great.
So, yeah.
Like the way you have your room set up, like the humidity is not like high at all.
No, so it's been really humid around here. Like right now, I don't even want to look at my iPhone to see what the humidity is outside. Actually, you know what? Let's do it. So right now in my backyard where I'm sitting and sweating, it is 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and my iPhone doesn't want to work. Come on. What are you doing? And it is 84% humidity right now.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's 84% humidity outside my house right now, and it is 44.6% in the snake room.
That's great. That's
it's going, bro. I'm like, I don't want to. It ain't all me, man. It's a lot of luck too. So,
meanwhile, in that box that I made, because like at that time I was living in the middle in Chicago, in Illinois, central Illinois, and it would get humid during the summers, and like even in my room it would be like sometimes 65-70% humidity. So I'd just be throwing like desiccant packs inside that box, just switching them out every day, getting those wool ones and everything, just because like I was worried, because I don't know how true this was, and I also don't want to test it out. But someone's like, oh, if it gets above this percent of humidity, you could introduce like rot to your scorpions.
Oh, sure. Well, I think it's their bodies aren't designed for that sustained moisture. But I also think that they can tolerate a high percentage of moisture because they're living in microclimates.
Yeah.
And even though it may be 104 degrees outside the little burrow that they're in, or under the plant that they're hiding in, a root structure they're hiding in that root structure, in that burrow, it may be, I don't know, 76, 78% humidity. Who knows?
Yeah, and that's like, I guess, like side tangent, that's similar to like leopard geckos. How like when my friends
Yeah.
find,
Yeah. And dude, leopard geckos like montane, man, and like cold tolerant. It's crazy. One thing I did think was interesting is, and this caught me off guard, one of my friends was like, hey man, because I have the Govee app and shows all the data, was like, look at because I've only had it since August, I think, or maybe July, I think. No, be like first or second week in August. Look at the year to date and see like what it looks like. Make sure my temp swings are where I want them. And I looked, and at one point the temperature was like 97.6, and I was like, when the hell did that happen? And I look, and that was when I wanted to make sure it was working, and I held it up to my mouth and went for like 1 second, or 2 seconds, and it shows the spike from my hot ass breath going in there. But I've been maintaining the swing, and I feel like even though I want it to be 20% humidity or 30% humidity, I feel like everything's doing better at 44, 45% like it is right now. And like, don't get me wrong, it'll pouring rain tomorrow and it'll spike to 60, 70% humidity, but by 2 a.m, it's gone. So like, especially with the air conditioner going, I'll still get that 71, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Hopefully, if I can get it colder, I will. But I think we overthink it too much, but then on other things we don't remember to do it. Does that make sense?
yeah, I completely get that. I'm definitely on the overthinking side for the most part. Like,
Oh, for sure, I am too, 1,000%.
Yeah.
So
usually on the field, I have a temp gun as well as just like something to take ambient temperature, as well as like those kinds of things. I guess that's just like from like my past, some past jobs and everything. I keep a little notebook. When I go herping, I found this thermophis under this cover at this time of day, knowing that's probably just useless information. But if you have.
And you'd said you go to the arts and crafts store to get the what store was it?
Michael's.
Okay, so like it's funny because I just went to the Michael's by me closed down, so I had to go to Hobby Lobby, and it's half a dozen one the other, right? And they have all these great rubber cactus and rubber succulents and all this cool stuff. So obviously with all my desert critters, I want to buy a handful of them. And I've done this in the past too, but this time I was putting it in tubs, and the airflow is good in the tub, but now I'm adding all these rubber plants. And I was talking to my coworker Chris, who's he's a keeper too, and he's like, hey man, watch out if that rubber doesn't increase your humidity and cause mold. He said that he did something similar where he had like rubber orchids or fake silicone orchids or something like that, and the orchids themselves, the fake ones, wound up getting mold growing on them because whatever rubber it was, it retained the moisture in the porousness of the rubber, and it just festered there and rotted. So even though it was a fake plant, it still caused a mold outbreak, if you will. So I was like shocked. I was like, oh man. So now I'm trying to keep good tabs on it, make sure that those tubs don't have the high humidity.
Would not have even thought about that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. And like, and that's the other thing too, is because like I've got a container store tub, those nice gasket tubs, and I've got 3 inches of sand, cork bark, a small water bowl, and rubber cacti, for lack of a better word, rubber succulents, whatever they are. And it's still less humidity in the tub because it's those gasket tubs, and even though there is ventilation, there's still less humidity in the tub than there is in the room. So I'm doing something right in that regard. I don't know.
Nerd.
I know. Well, we're way over schedule. So Smitty, was there anything else you want to touch base on?
I don't think
Now
so.
it looks like you're done perusing the morph markets, seeing what cookies you're going to hide from your wife. Were you looking at pornography? No, arachnoboards.
That might even be worse.
Yeah, that might be worse.
No, I haven't been on arachnoboards in a long time, but I do want to go on there and scope the bite report section because that was always an interesting scroll.
Yeah,
Sounds
for sure.
like how they got bit. Like I remember with the Haitian brown bird eater, the fermented Schizoides, this guy stuck the transfer got out underneath his couch and he stuck his hand in there, tried to grab it, trying to get it out. Failed.
How do people think it's going to end?
Yeah.
Like, you think it's just going to let you just grab it and pull it on out? Like, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Well, what kills me is like, okay, someone's free handling a bird eater. All right. They are being the ground. They are the ground. They are the tree. As long as they don't grab at the spider, like they shimmy their hands underneath it. They scoop it up. They treadmill it in their hands. Okay. Like I can understand the physics of that and them being not safe because they're never safe at any point in it, but I can understand where they don't get bit because they are the ground, right? But then you see some of these guys do it with Scolopendra.
Yeah.
And they do it with Scolopendra that are known to have a venomous peptide on their legs. And it's like, not like, even if they don't get bit with the actual like chelicerae or whatever they call those giant stabby fang things, they still have venom in their legs. Like, what are you doing, man? You're nuts. I don't know how these guys do it. Crazy. Yeah.
Centipede people are on another level.
Dude, I'll keep my comments to myself.
Freaks.
So,
well, if anyone has any questions or wants to get in contact, what is the best way that they do that?
Yeah, my Facebook, I guess, Nisarg Shah, or on Instagram, nis.arg. You can contact me there. Either one of those. I don't really have a public page outside of those two things, but feel free to shoot me a message.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Great stuff, bro.
We enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great having you on.
Got my fix. Got me looking at classifieds and stuff. Damn it.
I know, right? And then I don't know if you're getting into scorpions again, but Dr. Ian Engelbrecht finished his book and it just came out it's on Amazon now. It came out over summer, but it took a while to get to our Amazon. And it's every reclassified scorpion of Southern Africa.
Oh,
so
oh wow.
Yeah. And it's a lot, but it's a lot of knowledge, but it's inexpensive and worth getting. So
yeah, definitely. If you could shoot me a message with the name of it, I'll definitely be grabbing that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just called Scorpions of Southern Africa, but it's Dr. Ian Engelbrecht and dude, the photos and like the line drawings, and it's awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
I'll grab that.
Yeah, we need to plan our India trip.
Yeah. Definitely need to go back to the motherland at some point.
Don't worry, Smitty and I won't talk, and they'll never know.
Yeah. Just tell people we're like German or something.
Yeah, exactly. We're Canadian. That's what they always say.
Those kids are gonna crowd around your photos.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, this episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. Get you something nice. Put it in the cart. Then use the code THN at checkout. Get 10% off your order. Save on shipping. Choose the pickup option if you're in the general Southeast region. North Georgia is not that bad of a drive from most places.
Georgia.
Yep. And then FulviusApparel.com. Use the code THN at checkout as well. Get 15% off your order. That is the exclusive coupon code for THN listeners and viewers like you.
Is it coupon or is it coupon?
I always say coupon.
All right. I say it wrong. It's coupon.
It's the difference between roof and roof. Like same
That
thing.
is true. And creek and crick.
Maclets and Maclots.
That is not the same.
That is the same. Full-blooded caffeine. Get yourself some coffee. There's a link down below. Whether you get the Snakes and Stogies blend or any of the other blends, you will not be disappointed. It's good stuff.
Pinkies out.
That's right. Whether you want like an espresso grind, something really fine, or you want something a little more coarse for like a pour over, Trey can do it all. I've seen the operation. It's pretty cool. I need to go back up there because I got to see that fly river turtle. I keep saying
I know, man. I know.
Ugh.
Adorable.
Hopefully the filter can get all the drool that'll be falling in the tank.
Nice.
But we will be back Thursday. I don't know. Jake and Sky may be doing a Flippin' Tin episode. I'm not sure.
Cool.
Jake was out of town. Chris had family in town last week, so that's why nothing happened. We've been really slacking on the Thursdays lately, so forgive
It
me.
happens. Back in the swing of things.
Yeah. We appreciate it. Everybody have a good evening. We'll see you all later.
Bye.